Morning, citizens of Tampa and council members. Tampa City Council will now come to order. Regular session for March the 3rd, 2022. We have a moment of silence this morning. Everybody stand, then we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, roll call.
Carlson,
Here.
Maniscalco,
Here.
Dingfelder,
Here.
Citro,
Here.
Vieira, Miranda, and Goose.
Here.
We have a physical quorum.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Clerk. Mr. Shelby, if you would please, sir.
Yes, good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of Tampa City Council. Martin Shelby, City Council Attorney. If the clerk would notate, please, for the record that Councilmember Dingfelder is participating remotely today.
Noted.
Thank you. Today is Tuesday, March 8th. Wait a second, is that right? Already?
March 3rd.
Third.
Oh, wrong one. Sorry. I have the wrong thing in front of me.
It's all right, sir.
Let's try it again. Today is Tuesday, March 3rd of 2022. It's after 9 a.m. and we are here at Old City Hall. And this meeting of the Tampa City Council is being conducted with a live in-person quorum of the City Council present in City Council chambers. However, in light of the continuing COVID-19 government-issued health standards or guidance in effect, members of the public have the ability to participate virtually through video teleconferencing, referred to by Florida statutes and rules as communications media technology. Now, please note that the public and the citizens of Tampa are able to watch, listen, and view this meeting on Spectrum Channel 640, Frontier Channel 15, and on the web at tampa.gov/live stream. Now, the members of the public have multiple ways of communicating with City Council in lieu of a personal appearance, and that is listed on the notice of this hearing on the City Council's webpage at tampa.gov/City Council, one word. Also, the instructions are on the City Council's webpage as well. Now, if you speak remotely during CMT, you must pre-register using those instructions. If you don't have CMT or you wish to come to Old City Hall, on the second floor, the city has provided the opportunity to use communications media technology at 315 East Kennedy Boulevard. And also, just know that to participate in land use and alcoholic beverage hearings using CMT, remotely pre-registration is required. Now, if you do participate in quasi-judicial matters remotely via CMT, cell phones and smartphones are not compatible as they will not allow you to share your camera when connected. You must have access to a communications media device such as a tablet or a computer equipped with a camera or microphone that will enable you to be seen by video and heard by audio by the City Council and other participants. Now, the comments specific to a public hearing will be heard when they appear on the agenda, and all written comments must be received no later than 24 hours prior to the hearing to be distributed timely to City Council members and made a permanent part of the record. Now, also, Council, just a reminder that items that you receive today by electronic means, by text or whatever, related to city business of what's on the agenda, I would ask that if they are quasi-judicial, you stop the meeting and you disclose it, and you also be mindful to not communicate on city business with members of the public outside of this public meeting. I believe, I would ask that City Council waive the standing rules to take in effect the rules that were set forth in the notice of today's hearing.
Second.
All right, moved by Mr. Maniscalco, second by Mr. Citro. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion granted. All right, let's go with the approval of the agenda, gentlemen. All right. Mr. Shelby?
We have some items on the addendum. And with some items pulled earlier for the final that are noted? Madam Clerk, item number 42.
Item number 42 to be pulled for discussion.
All right, item 42 will be pulled for discussion from the consent docket. Okay,
Is that the only item?
all right.
Okay. Are there any other items to be pulled? Any other changes by council? Okay, and with regard to
Yeah,
number...
Mr. Chairman.
You're recognized, sir. Morning again to you, sir.
Good morning. Good morning. Thanks to all of you for your well wishes, and we're doing much better. Thank you. Yeah, I requested to pull item 42 because it's a financial item, but it addresses a lot of affordable housing issues and opportunities. And I just thought it would, since the affordable housing crisis is one that the community's talking about quite a bit for good reason, I thought it was a good opportunity for staff to state some of the good news and the good things that the city is doing. I also had a discussion with Jean Duncan and her folks about item 83, and we have agreed, and I think she put it in a memo today, to a 2-week extension for 83. So whenever and however you want to handle it, that I think we're in agreement with staff on that.
I think I did question that with Brad Beard on that. He gave me a few commitments, but I'm looking to hear what I'm sure you had some other recommendations, that's why you're pulling it, but I did have some questions on that as well, but.
Well,
Right, and we're in agreement over the next 2 weeks. We'll look at that and
Let's get a
they
date
can
on
bring
that.
it
Mr.
back or do
Chairman?
whatever they
Yes,
need.
Mr. Shelby.
I'm sorry. That is under staff reports, and the question is whether, I don't know whether Ms. Duncan is online now. I don't suspect she is. Normally, staff is not.
Okay,
Should we hold that for... Oh, there she is. Ms. Duncan, good morning.
Good morning. Yes, we are in agreement with Mr. Dingfelder, Councilman Dingfelder, to continue this item for 2 weeks so we can address some of his recommendations and put our information together, brief all of you, and come back in 2 weeks.
All right, date for that, Madam Clerk? March 17th. Ms. Dingfelder, that good with you? Ms. Duncan, that's good with you?
yes, sir.
All right. Motion to move item number 83 to March 17th. Mr. Maniscalco, second Mr. Cross, on favor? Motion passed. All right.
Mr. Chair, I'd also like to continue number 90 to March, what would we say, March 17th?
Yeah, I think 89 and 90 for March 17th.
Yeah, I'd like to move 89 and 90. You want me to move that one?
Yeah.
89 and 90 to March 17th.
Mr. Carlson has moved it. Second Mr. Maniscalco, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion granted. All right, those taken care of, 83, 89, and 90. 42 will be heard. $675 and 85 are substitutes, my understanding.
And those will be taken up at the time of the public hearing. Number 75. 75 is
All right.
public hearing.
91 will be heard later in the day. All right. We'll go to staff reports, see if we need to release anybody. Get that out of the way.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair.
You're recognized.
Yes, good morning. We also had a substitute attachment for agenda item number 37 that was submitted to the clerk's office last night.
37.
I just want to mention that. Yeah, just a substitute of the attachment to the resolution.
Okay.
Why don't we make a motion now to accept the substitute to number 37, so it's attached? Is
I
that
motion
okay,
to
Madam
accept.
Clerk?
Motion by Mr. Maniscalco.
Second.
Second, Mr. Sutro, all in favor? Any opposed? Motion granted.
Thank you.
And again, that's a substitute exhibit? Thank you.
All right. All right.
Thank you,
Item
Ms.
number
Hellman.
82. I did ask Chief Bennett to talk about where we at with COVID and the possibility of this council opening it back up to the public. I know some of the, and he's going to get me information about what other entities are doing and see if we can get the public back in. I think we kind of, everyone stopped kind of wearing masks a little bit now, so he'll give us an update on that. Item number 83, that was continued. Okay. Any problems with 84?
Would you release staff for
No
that? if
staff
there's
for
no question?
84? Okay,
Staff, Mr. Chair?
no staff, apparently no staff for 84. 85, we got a written report on that. 86, that has to be heard. It's presentation.
So with number 85, it's just to be received and filed, no staff on 85?
Yeah, no staff unless somebody needs that.
Okay, thank
Ms.
you.
Maniscalco, you good with that, sir? Okay, leave staff on that.
Could I just say, in case we do one motion on all these, on number 84, I did ask staff to ask for Whit Raymer's, the Sustainability Director's opinion on it. It doesn't affect the vote, but I just think that.
You want to hear it?
No, not for now, but I just wanted the public to know, because the environmental community has concerns about landfills. They're not always avoidable, but I just wanted to make sure that staff was having Whit look at it and he could give us his opinion privately.
All right, thank you, sir. All right. Mr. Maniscalco is good with 85. 86, I want heard. 87, Mr. Vieira.
Yes, sir. I'd emailed Parks and Recreation on this issue yesterday, and I should have a response today in anticipation, in good faith of that response. I'm fine with no appearance today. I don't think there's any need for that. However, I would like the motion, if I may, because the memo did talk to some more time needed, and that's fine. I just want to keep this on the front burner to have this motion remade. If I may make the motion.
Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, sir. To have this come back to us on the update on the Forest Hills Recreation Center and Community Park expansion, to come back to us in the first available week in June, if I may, if that would be
All
okay.
right, Madam Clerk, we have a date on that? June 2nd. I think Mr. Vieira has made a motion, second by Mr. Maniscalco. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is granted. June 2nd for
Thank you, sir.
87.
But no staff needed. Thank you.
All right, so we'll move on with that this afternoon. That's been done. 85, staff report. Mr. Dingfelder, Mr. Maniscalco,
What number, Cat?
88.
Number 88.
Mr. Chairman, in regard to 85, and I apologize for missing that one.
Yes, sir?
Can you hear me?
You're recognized. Yes, sir, you're recognized.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I do not need staff there. Originally, when the stormwater report came out, it spoke to the South Tampa Lamb Avenue project as a $7 million project that looked like it was going forward. And I brought that to the attention of Mr. Bide. And he said that was just a mistake, and that he submitted a memo yesterday correcting that and saying that the Lamb Avenue project was on hold, was being paused for reevaluation. So I thought, and that's responsive to the Sunset Park community that had great concerns about that project. So staff has pulled back. They're reevaluating all the options, and Mr. Bide put that in writing to us yesterday. So I just wanted to point that out to anybody in the community who's watching. I do not need staff for 85.
Okay, no problem, sir. Thank you. Staff not needed on 85. All right, we'll get back to number 88. That, Ms. Dingfelder, that was your motion? The housing study?
I don't know if there's been a memo on that. If not, I would like to have staff discuss that today.
All right, because I was gonna probably have them stay in reference to also the rental stabilization study as well. I think that needs to all be combined into one if we're gonna pay for somebody to do a study. My opinion, sir. All right, 89, your memo was sent. Mr. Carlos has already motioned for those to be continued to the 17th. And, all right, so we're good to go, gentlemen. Motion to approve the agenda.
And addendum, please, yes.
And the addendum, I'm sorry, and the addendum. Mr. Maniscalco, let's move it. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Vieira, all in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion granted. All right, we're open for business. No ceremonials this morning, so we'll go straight to public comment. Anyone on the second floor to speak this morning? Just for the note, Madam Clerk, Mr. Miranda does have a memo. He's going to be a few minutes late this morning, just for the record.
Hello.
Morning, sir.
I am sovereign, despot, king, queen, America, Johnny, Yahweh, Yahim, Siam. Now, as far as the housing situation, since we handle the HUD and we handle Section 8 and we handle all housing, look, you can start going through Coldwell Banker. And as far as all the police agenda, it's already approved. You're not going to talk about it. You're going to approve it. And you're going to get the police all of their, let's see, Tesla vehicles that you've been hiding and all of their domestic terrorist response stuff that you've been hiding and everything else. And all of those are still pissed off because you can't run women. You might as well get over it. Thank you.
Want to lie here because of.
I'm not gonna do video.
No, all right, that's fine. I was just thinking of the sun and I'm funny.
Okay.
John, you're on. John,
Mute
you
yourself,
need to
John.
mute.
Good morning, City Council. Joe Robinson, how you doing? And I want to say thank you, Councilman Goose, for announcing my birthday party here on March 9th, 17th at 9 a.m. by moving item 89 that I was here to talk about today, but it's been moved to my birthday. So I'm going to be over here at 9 a.m. on my birthday, and I appreciate the party you're going to throw for me. I'm here to talk about the documents that come out from the legal opinion from the, and Gina Grimes did a good job. Massey did a good job, but they didn't catch everything. And I'm here to give a legal argument that the HANA design bill negotiation between the city of Tampa and DPR needed a design criteria package to enter into in order for them to have a negotiated contract for this design bill and have a new one, design criteria package, and not 6160. Because according to the legal department, a new design criteria package was not required for the project. Really, based on what law or what executive order that a mayor has issued. So I don't find anything there. And the opinion did not cover the fraudulent 2015 contract documents, namely MD 10 and 20. There was nothing in here mentioned about those fraudulent documents in my questions. And basically what we did and need is an attorney general opinion, is what I think, now that we got the city attorney's opinion. For example, it says a design criteria package in the statute is used to permit an agency to enter into a negotiated bill contract. So how are we entering into a contract and we don't have a design criteria package? Unless they're trying to say this is a continuing contract, we can have a continuing contract do that. Let me just give you some case. And even in the city's mayor's executive order, Executive Order 9618, I don't know if you're about that. They didn't mention anything in this about the mayor's executive order, which is the administrative procedures for design bill. And it says the same thing in there about a design criteria package is required. And also, there's a case in Coral Gables, Attorney General Opinion, 2007-12, that talks about opinion to negotiate each phase of a multi-phase project that's been awarded to a construction manager at risk program does not comply with plain language of the intent of 287-55. Then there's case law. And they can look this up. This is our legal argument to the argument. City of Lynn Haven versus Bay City Council Registered Architects. It's 528 Sullivan 2nd, 1244, 1988, where it's talking about appeal from an order enjoining the appellate from awarding a construction contract and expending public funds on a public project. It says this: we agree that the appellate city procedures contravene legislative intent and undermines the effectiveness of CCNA. Specifically, the city's bidding procedure will not effectuate an equitable distribution of contracts among the most qualified firms in Section 207-55, paragraph 4. Okay? It says that Florida statutes neither does it assure that the architectural fees that the city pays in direct to fair and competitive or reasonable pursuant to Section 275. The plain language of CCNA requires it to publicly announce. I'm going to leave it at that because I only had 3 minutes, but I'll be back on the 17th. But I'm here to say that the opinion did not answer.
Mr. Robinson, Mr. Robinson.
Yes, sir.
We know you are an expert. Everyone knows you're an expert in this area. If you can just get the council a copy of those documents that you're referring to, those statutes, so council can look at those for our reading as well, we'd appreciate that.
Thank you. I was rushed up late last night to 2 or 3 o'clock, so I had to get this prepared real quickly. So I thank you. But like I said, you got my birthday party on the 17th.
All right, thank you, Mr. Robinson.
I'll flip it over there. Thanks.
Looks like the union's here. Morning, sir. You can begin at any time.
All right, good morning, Chair Goods, fellow council members. My name is Sean McDonald with the West Central Florida Labor Council, representing over 100,000 working families. I'm here to speak on item number 89, and we submitted a document back in February expressing our concerns with DPR and the Hannah Avenue project and the apprenticeship ordinance that this council passed unanimously. On that was some concerns and some questions we had. The concerns related to one of the contracts that was awarded to a steel erector. The contract was awarded to a steel erector that did not have a state certified apprenticeship program over a contract that did have a state certified apprenticeship program. And we also had 9 questions that we would like to have answered. One of the questions we did have answered, and I'm just going to read the answer that we received. It stated the city and DPR have both affirmed that the Hannah Avenue project is subjected to the city's newly enacted apprenticeship ordinance and requirements. DPR's apprenticeship program is currently being reviewed by the city staff to ensure that it complies with the city's requirements and that it'll be consistent with the intent of the city's apprenticeship ordinance prior to commencement of the construction project. Before I go any further, Section 26.5-214, letter B states prior to the city entering a construction contract, the city must receive documentation from the bidder verifying compliance with Section 26-214A. So my question is, why is the city now going over their apprenticeship documents? And further, I submitted a document to y'all upstairs where it shows my organization's apprenticeship document, and it's a very simple 1-page document from the Florida Department of Education that shows that you are accredited with the state, and that is the requirement of the apprenticeship ordinance. So I'm a little confused as to what's taking so long and as to why it's being done now. It seems to me like we can get a contractor in there that would abide by the ordinance and be able to produce this document. And DPR self-performs concrete. They perform doors and frames, and that falls under carpentry. And both those occupations are provided for by the Florida Department of Education. So whatever kind of apprenticeship programs they're trying to push would be not part of the Florida Department of Education approved apprenticeship program. So they would not be in compliance with the apprenticeship ordinance. Also, it says that once work commences, I was there this morning, and this is a picture that I took. Obviously, you can see work's commencing. Those are operating engineers, or what would be operating engineers. Once again, an apprenticeable occupation through the Florida Department of Education. So it seems like we're just going to kick the can down the road until this job is finished. I've been down this road before, seen it happen across the bay. I'm just confused as to where this is going, and you guys.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Vieira, you're
I
recognized.
appreciate it, and I never comment during public comment, but I appreciate y'all coming here. I know we're all going to look into this, especially with this photograph that was given, because this Hannah Street project is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, just in time for the apprenticeship ordinance to invest functionally millions of dollars in apprenticeships for young people. So we're going to make sure. I don't want to. I want to be careful, given the memo on legal issues, et cetera, on saying anything substantively publicly, but just out of an abundance of caution. But also just wanted to say our condolences for the passing of Todd Vega recently. I know a friend to many of y'all, and I'll be doing a commendation in his name later on. So just wanted to give my sincere sympathies in that regard. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Could I just say, sir?
You recognize Mr. Carlson?
I'm going to get an outside attorney to give me some advice on the memo that was sent a couple days ago, but
Excuse
my
me,
interpretation of it.
Mr. Chairman,
You recognize, sir?
I'm sorry. Councilmember Vieira's comments, while I appreciate, I would just ask, if you're going to talk substantively about an item that's been continued, I suggest that you not, especially during public comment.
I'm making a comment about a memo that was sent to us.
That item is off the agenda.
Okay.
It may be off the agenda. I understand, Mr. Carlson, Mr. Shelby, but you have a council member who's saying in reference to
Let me just
comment. So I'm kind of confused on.
Let me just
I
say
don't
my
think that's legal.
interpretation of the memo is that we're not allowed to talk about the substance of item number 90, but not that we're not allowed to talk about item number 89. And you all have to seek your own counsel on that. But I'm going to get outside counsel to give me advice on whether they agree with the memo. But I don't think we're not allowed to talk about the topic at all, just as I interpret it, just the substance of item number 90.
Well, I'm going to have Mr. Shelby look at that because I have an issue with the memo as it relates to not being able to bring this to the public in reference to the situation the public's asking information on. So I'm going to have Mr. Shelby at a later date research that. I understand the city attorney has her opinion and gives a say on the city, but we need our council to be able to research what this council can do and what we can't do so the public knows that we're doing our job.
And as,
Mr. Chairman,
I'm
sorry, before we continue.
Mr. Robinson said, there are a lot of holes in both memos that were sent to us, and I'm going to be asking for documents to back up some of the statements that were made.
Ms. Shelby?
I didn't know whether there was somebody from legal who was listening on this, who wanted to be recognized, but I couldn't see it on my monitor.
Ms. Shelby, I'm not worried about legal being
Okay.
regulated. I'm worried about you
Yes.
being empowered to do your job for this council.
Understood.
Your job is to be empowered this council to give us recommendations, sir, to do research, sir, and to tell us what we can do and what we can't do. From that point, if legal comes down and says, Mr. Shelby, you are in contrast to what we're saying, then that's a fight that we'll deal with legal and you on. But your job, sir, and I'm going to make it clear to you, sir, and crystal clear to you, sir, that your job is to empower this council to do our job regardless. It's not about you making friends or trying to be nice with people or any of that. Your job is solely to research, give us the correct information or interpretation that you believe. And if legal doesn't believe in the interpretation you have given, then we'll deal with that on another court. But your job is to give us the interpretation of what you believe so we can move forward as a council, as a body for the public. Am I clear on that, sir?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
And
Mr. Carlson, you're recognized.
And I just want to add, we're not elected to make anybody politically happy. Our job is to protect the public and to represent the public. And when we have a shortage of money for potholes and we have a shortage of money for sidewalks and the things the public wants, it's our responsibility to make sure that we ask questions. And whatever the political fallout of asking questions, it's our duty in representing the public to ask the question. Thank you.
Anyone else need to be recognized on this subject? Mr. Vera, you're recognized.
Thank you. And I just wanted to say, without opening up any can of worms, which I don't think, at least from what I said, anything was opened up, that my only statement was making sure that an ordinance is complied with, but nothing on any of the issues addressed in 89 and 90, to the best of my knowledge and representation at all, and things that I think have been said before at City Council. So just to make that abundantly
I
clear.
get so upset when we try to bring this political stuff into this house. This house is responsible for the people's money. They're responsible for answers to the people. And I get upset time and time again when we just go on eggshells or try to sweep things under the rug, and this council is left out on times and on interpretations and on all kind of issues. Our job is to legislate, period. We're not going to make friends. We're not going to make people happy sometimes. We're not going to make the administration happy. But our job is to legislate and not be afraid of what the political fallout it is. It is what it is. And I've just given Mr. Shelby instructions, and I'm just clear on that. You're empowered to do a job. Be our attorney, sir. And we'll deal with the rest as it may fall. Anyone else on this subject? We're
Yes,
moving
Mr.
on to public
Chairman.
comment. Mr. Stingfellow,
Mr.
you're
Chairman.
recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We've already, the motion was already made to continue the HANA item to March, and I voted in support of that. I just want to make it clear that when we come back in March, I agree with legal staff that we should not discuss the possibility of rescinding the contract or anything like that. I agree with legal staff. I'm familiar with the case law they cited. That we are that horse is out of that barn. We are way down the road on that, and there is 10 different reasons, legal and financial, that we should not even talk about the possibility of rescinding the DPR contract. However, on March 17th, from a matter of policy, we need to continue having these discussions about the apprenticeship program as it relates to Hannah, which is what Mr. Vieira was just talking about. We need to have discussions about ensuring the 35% WMBE and any other policy discussions related to this $100 million project. So I'm probably speaking more to staff and the legal staff right this second to just say that while I agree with them on the issue on the other legal issue, that from a policy perspective, don't tie council's hands in regard to March 17th and the discussion of these other very important policy issues that were raised by the community and the gentleman who spoke earlier too. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Dingfelder. All right, we'll continue on with public comment.
Good morning.
Morning.
I stepped into it at the right time. Connie Burton. We just simply can't keep kicking the can down the road. And I really want to appreciate the body's decisions this morning, that you are there to represent the interests of your constituents. And what I do know, not being an attorney, is that Hannah project is moving without full participation and support of this community. We do not see apprentice programs down there. We do not even see people from that predominant community being able to go up there and get a job. So a project that moved from one price point to now this humongous price point of over $100 million is not benefiting the African community. That's number one. And I hope that people that is committed to apprenticeship programs for our community, that is just not talking points from that council, that you make people do what's the right thing. Item number 42 is why I was here, is because last week what you heard is that not that we need just rent stabilization, but we are in a housing crisis. And so we need stabilization, but we need to have proof that you really understand about an emergency action and making sure that there's a housing opportunity for everyone. I want to share this document with you this morning. It was given to me through the mayor's administration when they was talking about transforming Tampa for tomorrow. We talked about a tiny home pilot project. In this document that I didn't write up, two persons was considered for a project selection. That was myself and Ms. Robin Donaldson. I can't speak for Ms. Donaldson this morning, but I can tell you that I have gotten nowhere. It has just been all talk. It has all just been a smoke and screen. But what we do see is developers inside of the East Tampa community building that's benefiting a financial revenue for the other side, while people in our community that need housing solution, whether it is modular homes, container homes, tiny homes, we have not been able to make any traction. And I am hoping that from the last week conversation, when people was here telling you that even with an income of $1,200 a month, they are still not able to break even. Yes, we're headed toward a political season, and I hear you say this all the time, and I respect this coming from you, Councilman Gould, that it don't matter if the people vote again for whomever, but we are paying attention. And we want solution toward our crisis now across the board. Thank you.
Uhuru, Mentiznot. Uhuru means freedom in Swahili. And we say we as African people, we should always think about our freedom because we're the most disrespected, the most oppressed. It's been that way for the last 600 years, and it's very, very visible. When you come before this city council, what we have is bullies and tyrants, and we have no transparency and no accountability. And I've been saying that for 30-some years. No accountability, no transparency. And you have a bunch of cowards. You have men and sometimes women up there that act like they're not representative of what the electorate put them there to do. They don't really represent their constituency in any way whatsoever. We have bicycle stops, never been handled. We have illegal search and seizures, never been handled. We have a $108 million project that's going on, no transparency. We have a police chief that we don't know how she got in office. We have an idea how she got in office, but no accountability and no transparency. We have a mayor that's supposed to be here today to come before the city council to discuss a $108 million project that's going on inside the African community, but no African jobs, no African contractors, not our right percentage anyway. We should get at least 26% of it. But once again, no accountability, and these things are just going on and on and on. That have to stop. And the look like the general feel is, hey, we can bully people. We seen it happen yesterday. We seen a politically retarded governor come right in our city and bully some children from a predominantly African school that's in the African community and did so on a college campus, and no one stood up to say anything about that at all. It shouldn't be that way. You shouldn't be able to bully children and get away with it. Somebody have to respond to that. And I've seen a lot of minority children on that stage. Just call the children stupid to their faces and embarrassingly made them take their mask off, or some of them move off the stage. Well, this city council, now that's a group of children that you really need to invite down here and just let them know how adults should act and how adults should conduct themselves. So they really should call out Middleton High School to come down here and represent in one way or another to show them how, especially the electorate, should give them respect. And what I want to say to the governor is, you're trying to get people to take their mask off. What we would like you to see, if you say mask isn't necessary or mandatory or whatsoever, and if it looks stupid, we think that wife of yours looks stupid with a bra on. So next time she get on stage, have her take that bra off.
Okay, Mr. Daniels. Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Mine's working now. They're working up here now. Good morning.
Good morning, gentlemen. Came down to see you in person, but yeah, you're upstairs. Affordable housing. Oh, wait, now I have your attention. Affordable housing can't be cured with a Band-Aid, as much as we would like for it to. Affordable housing needs to be addressed in our code through the process and planning. In 2020, the planning department was created. Randy Goers retired in the last few months with just a handful of staff and a new head of our department, who, in my opinion, is amazing. I'd like to point out that the planning department was completely ignored for the last 20 years while our city grew by approximately 25%. Our land use was established in 1978, before cell phones, before personal computers, and before microwave popcorn. We still have zoning based on the era of the Gremlin being a popular ride. Affordable housing cannot be built or developed without amending our code. Our code can't be amended without planning. Our planning can't be done without the people to make the plans. Our planning can't be done without it being written. It takes people to write the code. As the changes are demanded by the council, by the mayor, and by the citizens of Tampa. From my research, a lot of what is in the current code was brought by developers and folks who made money from the changes. Why is that? City Council voted to stop that process. Thank you. But we must address the root of the problem. We can't drag this on like the little engine that could. It's time to step up the process and fixing this problem. I'd argue that they pulled the Hannah Street project through the process like a Japanese express train, and here we are, just the little engine that could for affordable housing. Why not do the same for affordable housing? Hire the people to change the code. It should not be written by the citizens. It should be written by the professional city staff. We must hire the staff to support the process necessary to allow the community to build with responsible density. Like the missing middle, small-scale multifamily housing that fits into existing neighborhoods. It can be done. You just have to give the people who know how to do it the help to do it. Every single person under Miss Nicole Travis's department has always been the consummate professional. But over and over again, they are up to their noses in work. They can't stop playing catch up to get ahead. The planning department can't plan because they've got their fingers in the dike. It is time to quit working on the 1978 Gremlin and hire folks to create the new Escalade of a plan to address the needs of the people in the city, to embrace the city as we have now. Please let me continue. While we're at it, maybe seriously take time to look at the design for the city council.
Thank you, Ms. Pointer. I got to be fair, Ms. Pointer, but thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Mara. I'm a lifelong resident of the city of Tampa. I've been in the city my whole entire life. And I come to you in complaint about the mayor's appointment for police chief. This appointment was done illegally. This is the legislative body. She is the executor, but you are the legislative body, and she did not bring this to the council. It goes against our city charter. Also, my nephew had an arrest record, a misdemeanor arrest, and he could not be on the police force. And I don't understand how Mary O'Connor, having a felony arrest, being fired, then got a second chance and was rehired and served on the TPD. Then she retired. So I don't know how this is happening. Law enforcement, I have a law enforcement brother, and then I have here that law enforcement, once you've been arrested, you cannot be certified as a police officer, as a law enforcement officer. You cannot be certified. So I'm just against this appointment. I'm against the breaking of the law. I mean, we're talking about the city charter. That is our laws. And if the mayor of the city of Tampa can break our laws and sweep things under the rug, I don't know where we are. And this is uncalled for. It's unacceptable. And also, I believe that Mary O'Connor, she retired in 2016. She was doing other work. We have Delgado, who was appointing acting chief, and he has a clean record, and he should receive that appointment to the chief. Also, he's a minority. He has been a lifelong resident of the city of Tampa, and he has a clean record. We need a police chief that our force can look up to, somebody that is exemplary, that has a clean record, and those are my 2 cents. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
final speaker, Chairman.
I couldn't hear you, sir. That's it, sir?
I'm sorry, that was the final speaker.
Hey, thank you, sir. We'll go to the screen.
Chair, we had 2 registered speakers, Mr. Michael Randolph and Alex Steen. However, neither are logged on at this time.
No one's logged on. All right. Since no one's logged on, I guess we'll move on then. All right, item number 1.
That's an ordinance being presented for first reading. Staff, want to comment on that or no? I see Ms. Feely on the screen.
All right, Ms. Feely?
Good morning, Chairman Goots, members
Morning.
of council. Item number 1 for you this morning are some changes to Chapter 5, which is our building code in the city, city ordinances. These are legislative updates and predominantly handle local governments having electronic permit submittal, which I know you all are aware we already do with our Acela system, and then also the potential to conduct virtual inspections. So these changes are really a housekeeping that came out of the legislature, but we are here if you should have any questions, and we would appreciate your consideration and approval today.
Any questions for Ms. Feely? All right. Mr. Vieira, you like to read it?
I move an ordinance being presented for first reading consideration, an ordinance of the City of Tampa, Florida, making revisions to the City of Tampa Code of Ordinances, Chapter 5, Building Code, amending Section 5-105.3, application for a permit, amending Section 5-105.3.1, action and application, amending Section 5-105.3.4, time limit on single-family residential dwelling, amending Section 5-105.7, refusal to issue permit, amending Section 5-106.1, submittal documents, amending Section 5-106.5, retention of construction documents, amending Section 5-109.1, inspections, and Section 5-109.5, inspection requests, repealing all ordinances or parts and ordinances in conflict therewith, providing for severability, providing an effective date.
Second.
Second by Mr. Citro. Roll call, please.
Citro,
Yes.
Vieira. Yes. Miranda, Dingfelder,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
Maniscalco,
Yes.
and Goose.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously with Miranda being absent at vote.
Excuse me.
Thank you, council.
Thank you.
Second reading and adoption will be held on April 7th, 2022 at 9:30 a.m.
Mr. Chairman, I did not see on the, Madam Clerk, I did not see Councilmember Dingfelder on the screen.
There he is.
Oh,
You got him now, Mr. Shelby?
well, the question is, okay,
He's working that body. I know what he's doing.
I got it. The question is whether he should be on the screen when he's present, just so that, or
All right, so if we vote, we'll put him on the screen right quick, you know, I think that. Yeah, well, all right, Mr. Dingfelder, Mr. Shelby said we need to turn your screen on when you get ready to vote, all right, sir?
I'll do it. I just turned the screen on to confirm who I am in case there was any question. And I'll try my best, Mr. Shelby.
All right, sir. Thank you. All right, we good, Mr. Shelby? Mr. Shelby, are we good?
I would prefer if he were on the screen, but I know that's asking a lot of him. He's recovering, but still, I'm just concerned that at least at the time of the vote, he's on the screen. And
Well, I
certainly,
think if he votes, right?
Pardon?
When he gets ready to vote, he can show up to vote, right?
But certainly for the second readings and the quasi-judicial matters, I would ask that he be on the screen.
All right, well, you are the attorney, and we've empowered you to do your job. So Mr. Dingfelder, Mr. Shelby says if there is a minor, a quasi, or so forth, that you need to be on the screen, sir.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, and in that regard, Mr. Shelby, I might just not participate in the second readings. You know, I'm not feeling 100%, but I'm doing the best I can.
I'm sorry, council member. I'm sorry, but I appreciate what you can do. Thank
All
you.
right, that's it. Always what we can do. Always that word. Always what we can do. Never what we can't do. What we can do. Appreciate you. All right, we're going to move on. Mr. Detroit, you all right, sir?
I'm fine. Stretching.
Okay, sir. All right.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move items 2 through 7.
All right. Second by Mr. Maniscalco. Roll call.
Miranda, Dingfelder,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
Citro,
Yes.
Maniscalco,
Yes.
Vieira, and Goode.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously with Miranda being absent at vote.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir. Mr. Maniscalco, Parks and Recreation, 8 through 26, sir.
Thank you very much. We have a lot of great events being approved here. I'd like to move items 8 through 26.
Second by Mr. Vieira. Roll call.
Carlson,
Yes.
Dingfelder,
Yes.
Miranda, Maniscalco,
Yes.
Vieira, Citro,
Yes.
and Goode.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously with Miranda being absent at vote.
All right. Public Works, Mr. Dingfelder. If not, I'll have Mr. Carlson do it if you not up to it, sir.
That would be fine.
All right, Mr. Carlson, can you go through 27 through 40 as the vice chair?
Yes, I'd like to move 27 through 40, including substitute for number 37.
Second.
Second by Mr. Maniscalco. Roll call.
Dingfelder,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
Maniscalco,
Yes.
Vieira, Citro,
Yes.
Miranda, and Goode.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously with Miranda being absent at vote.
Mr. Citro, Mr. Miranda's not here yet,
With
sir.
pleasure, Mr. Chair.
42 has been pulled. 42 has been pulled.
I move items number 41 and 43.
Second.
Right. Mr. Maniscalco seconded. Roll call.
Vieira, Maniscalco,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
Citro,
Yes.
Miranda, Dingfelder,
Yes.
and Goode.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously with Miranda being absent at vote.
All right, Mr. Carlson, you have 44 through 60 for building and zoning.
Yes, sir. I'd like to move 44 through 60, please.
Second.
Second by Mr. Maniscalco. All in favor?
Aye.
I'm sorry, roll call. Second by Mr. Maniscalco. Roll call. I apologize, folks.
It's okay. Maniscalco,
Yes.
Vieira,
Yes.
Citro,
Yes.
Miranda, Dingfelder,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
and Goode.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously with Miranda being absent at vote.
All right, transportation, Mr. Vieira, 61 through 68, sir.
Yes, sir. I hereby move items 61 through 68.
Second.
All right, second by Mr. Maniscalco. Roll call.
Citro,
Yes.
Vieira,
Yes.
Miranda, Dingfelder,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
Maniscalco,
Yes.
and Goode.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously with Miranda being absent at vote.
All
I'd like
right.
to set item number 69 to be scheduled for April 21, 2022 at 1:30 p.m. That's ARC 21-488C.
All right, second.
Second.
Anyone? Second by Mr. Citro. Mr. Shelby, you want a roll call on that or not? No. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion granted. All right, can we get the hearings opened up?
Move to open.
Second.
All public hearings all the way through 70 to 71.
1? 81, okay.
No, I'm sorry, to 79.
79. Right.
Right.
Open public hearing 70 through 79.
And Mr. Chairman, items number 70 and 71 are legislative matters.
All right.
Could I just, this morning I tried to reach the legal department regarding items number 71, 77, and 78, and
It was
the only way I
71,
could, the only
77?
way I could connect with them now to get a legal opinion is to step out of the room. Item number 71, I voted on, but then subsequently for a couple weeks I abstained. But now, as of last week, my other outside attorney said that because I've submitted all the responses to the public records requests and the subpoenas, that I'm cleared to vote on it. And then item number 77 and 78, I had previously abstained, but now my outside attorney has cleared me to vote on them. So when we get to those items, if I could just please ask the legal department to tell me whether I can or should vote on those, please.
All right, sir. All right, item number 70.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Kamaria Pettis-Mackel from the City Attorney's Office.
Morning.
Staff has already done the initial presentation regarding item number 70, which is to transfer the authority to enforce building permits violations from the Department of Code Enforcement to Construction Services.
All right, any questions for legal staff?
Council, Abby Feely, Director of Development and Growth Management. If I can just add to that for a moment, this is the creation of the construction activity compliance team and the authorization coming from code enforcement for certain activities coming to the building official in order to implement that new team.
All right.
And JC Hutchinson is flying in behind me on that matter right now if you have any other questions.
Any questions for staff? All right. That being said, anyone in the public speak on this item? Second floor?
No speakers to number 70.
Anyone virtually speak on this item?
No one is registered.
Move to close.
Second.
Senator Scalco, Mr. Vieira, all in favor? Any opposed? Motion granted. Mr. Scalco, take number 70, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. It would be my pleasure. I have an ordinance being presented for second reading and adoption, an ordinance of the City of Tampa, Florida, amending City of Tampa Code of Ordinances, transferring the authority to enforce certain building permit violations from the Department of Code Enforcement to the Construction Services Division, amending Section 5-104.3.1, authority, amending Section 9-2, definitions, amending Section 19-3, definitions, amending Section 19-4, Department of Code Enforcement duties and scope of authority of the Director, providing for severability, providing for repeal of all ordinances in conflict, providing an effective date.
Second.
Second by Mr. Citro. Roll call, please.
Miranda, Dingfelder,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
Maniscalco,
Yes.
Vieira. Yes. Citro
Yes.
and Goods.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously.
All right, item number
I'm
70.
sorry,
Thank
with
you,
Miranda
Council.
being absent.
Pardon me, Madam Clerk?
With Miranda being absent.
All right. Okay, item number 71.
Good morning, Chairman Goods and City Council. LaShawn Dock here with City Planning. Council, item number 71 is a second reading. This is a privately initiated text amendment. The applicant is Steve Michelini and John Lum. And this item is before you again as a reminder, Council, for second reading and adoption. We had presentation at first reading. I'm available if you have any questions.
Yeah, and sorry to have to do this publicly, but the legal department, do you have any objection to me voting on this?
Councilman Carlson, this is a legislative matter. So the scope of review or standard of review is different than in a quasi judicial proceeding. And I, based on the information I have to date, I see no basis or reason that you would have to recuse yourself, nor has the applicant made that request.
Okay, thank you very much. Sorry to have to do that publicly, but thank you.
All right.
Council, Steve Michelini, I'm here to present this and answer any questions you might have. None of us on the second floor have been sworn in yet.
All right, we'll swear you in.
It's not.
No, not a quasi.
Oh, I'm sorry, that's right, legislative, okay. Basically, there's 4 amendments that are being requested that was passed previously by the City Council. It had a recommendation from the Planning Commission board as well as the Planning Commission staff and the city staff regarding these changes. There are 4 changes. One establishes 35 feet as a standard for residential construction. The other one eliminates visitor parking for duplexes. The third one allows for courtyard style development. And the fourth one standardizes a setback with multifamily and to 15 feet. And I presented to you previously the very complicated formula that's currently in the code, and this removes that calculation and sets a standard separation between buildings. I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions for the gentleman? I'm hoping that with us, how we vote on this, I'm hoping that it doesn't come back to bite us a little bit. And I was looking at some other cities, and St. Pete being one, and how they've kind of changed their code. So I'm hoping that what we're doing does not hurt us in the long run as it relates to development inside of communities. Mr. Carlson, you're recognized.
Yeah, I spoke with Ms. Grimes, city attorney, a couple days ago, and she advised me on cases like this. I was in the minority voting no, but that I should just at least state briefly my reasons. And we heard substantial feedback and evidence from the community regarding these changes, that they were opposed to it, and that they would rather deal with these on a case-by-case basis. So just as an explanation for why I voted no. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
You're recognized, sir.
Thank you. I just want to echo the comments of Mr. Carlson. There were 2 or 3 of these items that I could support, but there was one that I couldn't, and since they all bundled together, I can't support the legislative change. So that's the, I will not be supporting this today.
Okay. Anyone else? All right, Mr. McLean, you can continue, sir, if you'd like to, sir.
Yes, sir. This issue has been vetted at over 8 public meetings, and including a neighborhood outreach public hearing, 2 hearings before the Planning Commission, at least a dozen or so more meetings and discussions with staff. These are nominal requests for changes that actually streamline the process, and they eliminate another step in terms of filing fees, and they drive the cost of any project up, and it delays projects substantially. In the case of the setbacks between residential structures, that's a very complicated process and calculation, and I think that I testified previously that we had 3 different engineers and architects look at this calculation. I can put it on the screen for you, and none of them came up with the same number. It's a very complicated process where you are multiplying the length times the height and the width of the buildings to come up with a setback. So in working with staff, they determined that 15 feet was reasonable for multifamily, and that's why we came up with that particular dimension. With respect to eliminating a visitor parking space for a duplex, it requires either then that you have to seek waivers for landscaping and green space, when it's very difficult to figure out who controls the parking space for a duplex. With respect to the request for changing the height from 30 feet to 35 feet, this is the RM24 is the only district in the city that has a 30-foot height before you stair step back. And the third item was to allow courtyard style developments so that you could have an interior courtyard with units facing the interior. And again, that's a design element that has, to my knowledge, never been disapproved through the design exception process, but it continues to add steps to this. So these have been refined from a number of previously requested initiatives, and we're now down to the last 4, which are critical to helping to streamline the development process. We would respectfully request your approval on second reading. And again, the Planning Commission found it to be consistent and recommended it. The Planning Commission staff did as well as the city staff supporting this and recommending it for adoption. I mean, I'll be happy to answer any questions, or you can direct your questions to staff and ask them as well to verify what I've said is accurate. I would appreciate your consideration and approval for these requested changes.
For the record, Mr. Miranda is on the dais. Any questions for the gentleman? Anyone else to speak on this item? Anyone on the second floor speak on this item?
One speaker, council.
Thank you.
Chairman, I was in the office getting in, so I heard most of the conversation.
Thank you, sir.
Don't come over here either. Good morning again, gentlemen. I sent upstairs some packets just now because I figured I'd get to go home and do this from home. I have a little bit of pictures for you that I'd like for you to see. This is one of my friend's houses. I would like to note that the greenhouse, the older house, is a 2,800 square foot home. And that's nothing to stick your nose up. But if you go on to, I'm not very good at this, but if you look at this, look at the mass of this home. Why does this home now need to be 35 feet above this yellow line? That's what Mr. Michelini is asking you to do. The yellow line is where the floor in the house on the left starts. So why would you need to be 35 feet above that? Why do we need to continue to do this? There's a home next door that this dwarfs, which is a nice size home. It's bigger than my home, probably bigger than most of the people in this building's home. But yet, we need to build these monstrosities with no kind of zoning impact. I'm sorry, I really had no intention of speaking right now. Secondary, here's a duplex that has deficient driveways. Okay, there's no sidewalk out front. This was just built in the last year. I would also like to point out these are driveways from my actual neighborhood. I live in a community with 12 single-family homes and 32 duplexes. You see that in none of these situations are they able to efficiently park in their driveways. So this is what we have in my neighborhood. We have homeowners who are parked on the street, and all four of these cars, three of the four of them, the people have no car in their driveway because they don't feel comfortable parking in their driveway because their spouse or neighbor can't get in and out of the property. I think these and other issues, and as I was finishing up, I'll finish up my speech real quick, that it's time for us to move into the 21st century with our planning, and we've got to go back and look at the codes, and these codes should not be rewritten by people who make money off of the changes. They should be written by the professionals that are hired and work for the city and do not have the personal bias impacted as they are in these PETAs. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Porter. Sometimes pictures do speak louder than words sometimes.
I completely agree. Thank you, Jeremy.
Anyone else speak on this item?
No more speakers.
Anyone registered to speak?
Yes, sir. We have Ms. Carol Ann Bennett.
Hi, I thought I'd have more time to come down and speak in person. I didn't know this was to come up quite this early. My name's Carol Ann Bennett. I'm a lifelong Tampa resident. We need city staff to show us examples of what happens with the current code and what would happen with this new code. Without that, I don't know what all the ramifications are, and neither do you. In lots of neighborhoods, including mine, McMansions built to the maximum height of 35 feet are looming over their neighbors. With the increased elevation of the finished floor, they are 40 feet. We hear frequent complaints from neighbors about the loss of light and air and privacy. And these houses are 40 feet at the peak of the roof. The actual wall of the house is actually 10 to 12 feet lower at the eaves. This amendment is for RM24, is for a building that can be 60 feet tall. That means the height of the wall would be at least 35 or 40 feet instead of 23 to 30 feet of wall you get in the other categories. In addition, it is becoming more common to build a flat roof with entertainment areas on top with outdoor kitchens, etc. So the neighbors end up with a 40-foot wall with a party on top looking down on them. This is just one possible negative result. How many more are there? Do they want the extra 5 feet so they can have 12-foot ceilings and other things that make this housing, this priced out of reach for even more people? Will these super elite, super expensive units help our housing crisis? Many industry professionals think it will make it worse. You and I need a thorough evaluation of this change. If you watch the public meetings that were held, you will see that city staff did not show us examples of what happens with the current code and what would happen with this new code. The applicants answered the questions, not staff. That is the biggest flaw with these PETAs, and it is why you got rid of them. Staff does not have time, nor should they be put into the position of defending these changes. So we end up with a mystery box of changes that will only be unwrapped after years of building to the new code. And the city's only response can be, oops. I heard several people at the public meeting raise questions about the duplex parking. The driveway is not long enough. The visitor parking is provided for by the garage and driveway, but there's several examples of deficient driveways. This week, I went to a meeting in Tampa Heights about a proposed new grocery store. There were people from 6 or 7 nearby neighborhoods. The vast majority were unhappy with the design because it was not an urban design. This amendment to have front doors facing a courtyard is not an urban design. This council recently approved a porch amendment to build a sense of community through natural interaction. Front entryways with porches and stoops face the sidewalk encourage it. These calculations between buildings were supposed to make more distance for higher buildings. At 15 feet, you could end up creating canyons. Please continue this item until we can find out what it really does and the city isn't left saying, oops. This will not slow building or growth, but it may avoid bad design. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for the lady? Staff. I guess, do we have anybody, Ms. Stocks? Listening to the comments
Yes.
of what the citizens have just stated, and listen to the photographs and the designs that they've given the staff, I have some concerns. Staff doesn't have any concerns about this?
Yes, what I'd like to do, if I may, LaShawn Dock City Planning Council, is to make a couple of points of clarification regarding the request. So as you know, it is a privately initiated request. There were 4 items that were requested for change that is brought before you today for second reading. So the first regarding the height. Currently in the code in the RM24, the maximum height allowed is at 60 feet. At 30 feet, you can begin your step back in height. You increase your yard by 1 foot for every foot you increase your height over 30 feet. What the applicant is requesting is that 35 foot at the height. That is the point at which the increase would occur versus the 30 foot. So the pictures are shown of just height in general, structures that have height in general. Staff reviewed it, staff did not have a concern. When you look at the other residential districts on this zoning table and the height required, this change would be consistent with the other zoning districts that are residential. So staff did not have a concern with that request. The second point I would like to clarify is the parking. Under 27-283.7, the applicant is requesting to eliminate the visitor parking, and that's on the semi-attached. And staff did not have a concern with that. Initially, when the request was submitted, it was to eliminate visitor parking in other areas of the city also, affecting other uses. But through working with staff and considering staff's comments and the public's comments, the applicant amended the request to only apply to single-family attached. What happens is you have a visitor space provided, you have 2 units, 1 unit is sold off, you have that third visitor space that would literally have to be split in half if a unit is sold off. So it only applies to the semi-attached units. So staff did not have a concern with that request. So the items you have before you are what's remaining of original 12 items maybe that the applicant originally started with. So I just wanted to make those points of clarification to you, council, and to let you know staff has worked with the applicant from the time of submittal.
Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Stock? All right, being none, we'll go back to the applicant.
Yes, council. Is this microphone on?
Sure, it's on.
The issue that, I know you were shown some pictures, but you're looking at older style developments where the codes were not standardized. So with a typical duplex, you have a 2-car garage and 2 cars that fit in the driveway, and that's according to the new code. So you would still have the 2-car garage and the 2-car availability on the outside in the driveway. This doesn't have anything to do with sidewalks. You can't waive, as you know, you've just amended the sidewalk code. So you can't just eliminate a sidewalk regardless of what you're building. And this isn't when they were talking about the height, as LaShawn pointed out, the stair stepping the proposal is for it to start at 35 feet instead of 30, so that we standard with all the residential zoning districts. And I believe that, this has been vetted over an extended period of time. We've taken additional time to work with staff and to also listen to what the public had to say about various comments. We've incorporated that. We've eliminated a number of requests that were under our initial petition, and we're now down to the remaining 4, which are important. They have been fully vetted. We've discussed it in way in advance, and again, this is not part of the FEMA height elevation. Remember that the proposal applies to the entire city, not just the areas around that are impacted by high water. So we believe that the requests are fair and reasonable. They do not overburden either the community or the staff. They're not creating extreme adverse conditions, and that they are fair and reasonable. We certainly request your support. I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions for the gentleman? Let me go back to staff again. Ms. Doc?
Yes, I am available.
Sometimes we don't know to know, and I'm a little concerned now. I don't know, the council members are making sure that this is a new day. Communities are different. They are changing. We need housing. I want to make sure this is not going to in any way affect or put more damper on our housing crisis and our situation for communities. So I am a little concerned this morning. And I have to blame myself for not digging a little more deeper into this. Don't ever want to hurt the citizens by making a vote that might impact us down the road. But you're saying staff has no concerns about this privately initiated text amendment?
Correct, Chairman Goods. The applicant worked with us, as I mentioned, from the beginning, from the time of submittal, and has greatly reduced its request from the original submittal. And has worked with staff on even modifying the language that was proposed in some of the zoning districts included in the request. So staff is completely comfortable with what is moving forward, the 4 items.
Mr. Chairman?
You're recognized, Mr. Dingfelder.
Thank you. This item has been hanging around for more than a year, so I don't see any urgency in the vote for second reading today. If Mr. Chairman or anybody else has some additional questions, why not just defer the item for 2 additional weeks?
I like, Mr. Miranda, you're right.
Two things. I'm just looking at everything one by one and trying to understand the factual understanding of what's before us. When I look at page 3 on the document given to us, is that the back side of a duplex or the front side of a duplex on this page here?
I see it, page 3
Yes, sir.
on the document. It's a good question, sir. Where the street's facing, it's like it could.
I don't know if that's the front side of the street or the back side of the street where duplexes are, that's got the word duplex
Right.
on top. It looks to me like the street, that is a street, it's real narrow. I'm not sure if that's factual or not on the document that was given, item number 71, by the neighborhood association or the neighborhood people, I shouldn't say association. But people that come up and bring these things, I'm just trying to figure out, is this the front or the rear of a duplex? I don't know.
I mean, I'm inclined to go with Mr. Dingfelder, give it 2 more weeks, and get with staff, and we can review some more, making sure that we. You're right, Mr. Miranda. You really can't tell, sir.
The way I look at it, I read it as at the back end because I
Right.
see the meters. I see the electric meters
Right.
on one of the houses. So
Garbage
I'm
cans there
assuming
too,
that they
yeah.
don't put electric meters on the front of a house.
Garbage can is there too. You see these recycling cans as well. And why is that great? But that's what I see, a green can.
And,
I see Mrs. Travis has jumped on, so I guess she has something to say. You're recognized. Morning.
Good morning, Council. Nicole Travis, Development and Economic Opportunity Administrator. Council, just hearing the comments today and Mrs. Dock information, I think another 2-week delay for me to look into this a little more to make sure there are no unintended consequences and to make sure that we give council a level of comfort in looking at this wouldn't hurt us. And I believe Mr. Michelini would be amenable if we can allay your concerns by just taking an extra 2 weeks to work through this. And if you allow us to bring it back to you on March 17th. So if you give me that opportunity, I'll look into it and work with Ms. Stark and Mr. Benson to make sure that we can answer all of your questions.
Thank you, Ms. Travis. Ms. Carlson, you recognize?
If we do that, I don't remember exactly what our rules say, but I think we ought to give the applicant a chance to present again, not just to make summary statements, just so that there's a fair chance to hear the arguments on both sides.
All right, Mr. Deanville, you want to make that motion to continue it? Ms. Travis says she's willing to be amenable to do that for us, sir.
Yes, I'd move to continue this item for 2 weeks.
All right, second?
The date and time, please, Madam
March
Clerk.
17th, sir.
March
se-
17th at 9:30 a.m.
All right, we have a second on that? So, Mr. Carlson, all in favor? Any opposed? Motion granted. Thank you, Mr. McLean.
Thank you, Council.
Thank you,
Thank
Ms.
you,
Travis.
Council.
Thank you,
Ms.
Council.
Dock. All right, moving right along. We've got that out of the way. Mr. Randall, catch up to speed. We're at number 72, sir.
Mr. Chairman, these are quasi-judicial matters.
Yes, sir.
Move to open.
Are they already open?
Oh, they're already open.
Yes, sir. Item number 72.
Ross Salmons, Development Coordination, presenting file number VAC 1916 for second reading and adoption. An ordinance vacating, closing, discontinuing, and abandoning a portion of right-of-way or alleyway located south of Braddock Street, north of Leroy Street, east of Matanzas Avenue, and west of MacDill Avenue, within the plat of John H. Drew's first extension, a subdivision in the city of Tampa. Staff is available if you have any questions.
Need to be sworn in, sir.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you have provided is the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
All right. Any questions for the gentleman? All right, anybody at the second floor to speak on this item?
Yes, I'm here as an agent for Idel Suarez.
Could you pull the mic up to your face a little bit so we can hear you?
Sure. I'm here for an agent for Idel Suarez and here to answer any questions that you have in regard to the application.
What's your name again, sir, if you mind?
My name is Lazaro Lantes.
All right. Any questions for the gentleman? All right. Anyone else to speak on this item on the second floor, sir?
No,
All
Councilman,
right.
no.
We have anybody online to speak, Madam Clerk?
No one is registered.
All right, move to close.
So move.
Mr. Miranda, second by Mr. Vieira. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion granted. All right, Mr. Carlson, if you take number 72, sir.
Sure. I'd like to move file number VAC 1916, ordinance being presented for second reading and adoption, ordinance vacating, closing, discontinuing, and abandoning a portion of right-of-way alleyway located south of Braddock Street, north of Leroy Street, east of Matanzas Avenue, and west of MacDill Avenue within the plat of John H. Drew's first extension, a subdivision in the city of Tampa, Hillsborough County, Florida, as more fully described in section 1 hereof, subject to certain covenants, conditions, and restrictions, as more particularly set forth herein, providing effective date.
Second by Mr. Miranda. Roll call.
Maniscalco? Yes. Carlson?
Yes.
Vieira? Citro?
Yes, I did state, I will state I did watch this on our recording, and yes.
Miranda?
Yes.
Dingfelder? And Goods.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously with Dingfelder being absent at vote.
All right. Item number 73.
Thank you so much. Zain Hussein, Development Coordination. Can I please be sworn in?
Yes. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Zane Hussein, Development Coordination. Going over case 73, agenda item number 73, case REZ 21-23. This is being presented for second reading and adoption at the location 1000 West Fig Street. A proposed rezoning from IG, Industrial General, to PD, Planned Development, Residential Multifamily. Site plans were dropped off to the city clerk's office 2 days ago. I'm here for any questions if needed.
Any questions for Zane? All right, we have an applicant. All right, Ms. Batzel?
Yes, sir. We're just here to answer any additional questions that you may have. Thank you. Elise Batzel, Stearns Weaver.
Any questions for Ms. Batzel? All right, being none, anyone on the second floor to speak on this item?
No speakers, Councilman.
All right, anyone signed on?
No one is registered.
Move to close.
So moved.
Second.
Randall has moved, second Mr. Citro, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion granted. Mr. Citro, could you handle number 73 for us, sir?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. File number REZ-21-23. Ordinance being presented for second reading and adoption. An ordinance rezoning property in the general vicinity of 1000 West Big Street in the city of Tampa, Florida, and more particularly described in section 1 from zoning district classification S, IG, Industrial General, to PD, Planned Development, Residential, Multifamily, providing for an effective date.
Second.
Second by Mr. Miranda. Roll call, please.
Vieira. Maniscalco. Citro.
Yes.
Miranda.
Yes.
Dingfelder. Carlson.
Yes.
And Goods.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously with Dingfelder being absent at vote.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, item number 74.
Thank you so much. Zane Hussein, Development Coordination. Agenda item number 74, case REZ 21-67. This is being presented for second reading and adoption at the location 330 South Hyde Park Avenue. Proposed rezoning from RO1 Residential Office to PD Planned Development Residential Multifamily. Site plans were dropped off to the city clerk 2 days ago. I'm here for any questions if needed.
Any questions for Zane? All right, being none, we have an applicant.
Yes, Mr. Michael Horner, he's on.
Council, good morning.
Morning, sir.
Michael Horner, 14502 North Del Mabry Highway, representing South Hyde Park LLC. Plans have been certified. I don't think we have any opposition or objections. We appreciate your support on this case. Thank you.
Any questions for Mr. Horner? All right, being none, anyone on the second floor speaking on this item?
No speakers.
Anyone registered?
No one is registered.
Move to close.
So moved. Second.
Maniscalco, second by Mr. Randall. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion granted. Mr. Randall, can you do the honor, sir?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. File number 74, file number REZ 21-67. Ordinance being for second reading and adoption. An ordinance rezoning property in general vicinity of 330 South Hyde Park Avenue in the city of Tampa, Florida, and more particularly described in section 1 from zoning district classification RO1 Residential Office to PD Planned Development Residential Multifamily, providing an effective date.
Second.
Second by Mr. Citro. Roll call, please.
Citro.
Yes.
Vieira. Miranda.
Yes.
Dingfelder. Carlson.
Yes.
Maniscalco. And Goods.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously with Dingfelder being absent at vote.
Item number 75.
Thank you, Council.
Thanks so much. Zane Hussein, Development Coordination. Agenda item number 75, case REZ 20-20. This is being heard for second reading and adoption at the location 3335 North 22nd Street. Proposed rezoning from RM24 Residential Multifamily to CG Commercial General. This being Euclidean case, no site plans were required. I'm here for any questions if needed.
Any questions for Zane? All right, being none, we have an applicant.
Mr. Chairman and Council, again, Michael Horner for the record, 14502 North Del Mabry Highway. This came before you a couple weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. We certified the legal description this week for the north half. As you'll remember, we left out the south half of this property, and no objections that I'm aware of from staff. Appreciate your support on this one as well. Thank you.
All right, question, Mr. Horner. All right, anyone to speak on this item on the second floor? Anyone on the second floor to speak on this item? We have anyone, registered?
No one is registered.
All right, move close.
So move.
Moved by Mr. Mr. Miranda, second by Mr. Maniscalco. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion granted. Mr. Vieira has left the room. Mr. Maniscalco, you take 75, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I have an ordinance rezoning property in the general vicinity of 333.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, ma'am.
I apologize for interrupting. We filed a substitute ordinance for item 75. I would ask council to read the substitute ordinance.
That is on
Yes,
your,
ma'am.
that
I
is
have
on
it
your
here.
addendum.
That is on the agenda. I apologize, Ms.
I have
Wells.
it on the addendum here.
So
All
it's to move the substitute for second reading and adoption, is that correct, Ms. Wells?
Yes, as Mr. Horner mentioned, the legal description was certified this week. So that was the purpose of the substitute ordinance, was to include the updated and corrected legal description.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Then I move a substitute ordinance being presented for second reading and adoption. An ordinance rezoning property in the general vicinity of 3335 North 22nd Street in the city of Tampa, Florida, more particularly described in section 1 from zoning district classification RM24 residential multifamily to CG commercial general, providing effective date.
Second by Mr. Vieira. All in favor?
Aye.
Roll call.
Roll call, I'm sorry, roll call.
Miranda,
Yes.
Citro,
Yes.
Dingfelder, Carlson,
Yes.
Maniscalco,
Yes.
Vieira, and Goods.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously with Dingfelder being absent at vote.
All right, item number 76.
Thank you so much. Agenda item number 76, case REZ 21-96. This is being presented for second reading and adoption at the location 404, 406, and 408 East Oak Avenue. Proposed rezoning from PD Plan Development to PD Plan Development, residential single-family, detached, and commercial off-street parking. Site plans were dropped off to the city clerk's office 2 days ago. I'm here for any questions if needed.
Any questions for Zane? All right, we have an applicant for this?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this is Dave McKenna. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
See me? Thank you. Good morning, council members. We are here.
You sworn in, sir?
simply
You
to
sworn in? Mr. Mechanic, you sworn in, sir?
Oh, no, sir. Sorry.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Council members, we are here simply to answer any questions and request your favorable consideration of the application.
Any questions, Mr. Mechanic? All right, being none, anyone on the second floor to speak on this item? Anyone speak on this item on the second floor?
No speakers, sir.
All right, anyone registered?
No one is registered.
All right, move to close.
So move.
Mr. Miranda's moved it. Need a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Carlson, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion granted. Mr. Vieira, will you take that forward?
Yes, sir. I move an ordinance being presented for second reading and adoption ordinance rezoning property in the general vicinity of 404, 406, and 408 East Oak Avenue in the city of Tampa, Florida, more particularly described in section 1 from zoning district classification, PD plan development to PD plan development residential, single-family detached, and commercial off-street parking, providing an effective date.
Second.
Second by Mr. Maniscalco. Roll call.
Miranda,
Yes.
Dingfelder, Carlson,
Yes.
Maniscalco,
Yes.
Vieira, Citro,
Yes.
and Goods.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously with Dingfelder being absent at vote.
All right, item number 77.
Mr. Chair.
You recognize, sir?
Yes, and sorry to put the legal department on the spot again. So 77 and 78, I had previously abstained, but since then, I have removed the abstention because I fully complied with the request that we received. But is it more consistent for me to abstain twice or more consistent for me to not abstain?
Councilman Carlson, Kate Wells, for the record, we had not previously recommended or advised you to abstain previously. I believe that you made that decision on advice of your own counsel, so I would have to defer to you and to the advice you had received from your private counsel.
Okay, and these are exceptions, new cases coming up. I would not abstain unless something different happens, but my counsel is okay with me at voting on this unless the applicant has an objection. Thank you.
And also, Mr. Carlson, what you're saying is the reason for your concern has been removed and you can be fair and impartial on these votes. Is that correct?
Yes. Yes. And I also watched these while I was in the other room.
All right. We will continue. Item number 77.
Thanks so much, Zane Hussein, Development Coordination. Agenda item number 77, case REZ 21-98. This is being presented for second reading and adoption at the location 210 and 212 North Albany Avenue. This is proposed rezoning from PD, Planned Development, to RM16, Residential Multifamily. This is a Euclidean case, so no site plan was needed. I'm here for any questions.
Any questions for Zane? All right, being none, hear from the applicant.
Good morning, council. I was sworn, but it was sworn with other people. I'll be happy to be sworn again if that is required.
You good, sir? Deputy Clerk, so you good?
This rezoning is a vested PD for 6 units, and by going to the RM16, that will decrease the density and allow only 4 units to be built. We did not have any comments that were adverse to this. It was supported by the Planning Commission as well as the city staff, and we didn't hear from any neighbors who had concerns or objections. We respectfully request your approval.
Any questions for the applicant? All right, anyone on the second floor to speak on this item? Anyone on the second floor to speak on this item?
No speakers on the second floor.
Anyone registered?
No one is registered.
Move to close.
So moved.
Madam Scalco, second by Mr. Miranda, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion granted. Mr. Citro, since Mr. Carlson did abstain, I would like for you to read number 77, if you would, that way he can vote.
With pleasure, Mr. Chair. Thank you very much. File number REZ-21-98. Ordinance being presented for second reading and adoption. Ordinance rezoning the property in the general vicinity of 210 and 212 North Albany Avenue in the city of Tampa, Florida. More particularly described in section 1 from zoning district classification, PD, Planned Development, to RM16, Residential Multifamily, providing an effective date.
Second.
Second by Mr. Miranda. Roll call.
Dingfelder, Carlson,
Yes.
Maniscalco,
Yes.
Viera, Citro,
Yes.
Miranda,
Yes.
and Goose.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously with Dingfelder being absent at vote.
Thank you,
All right.
Mr. Chair.
Thank you, sir. Item number
Thank you,
78.
council.
Yes, sir.
Thanks so much, Zane Hussein, Development Coordination. Agenda item number 78, case REZ 21-123. This is being presented for second reading and adoption at the location 4510 South Manhattan Avenue. This is a proposed rezoning from RS60, Residential Single Family, and CG, Commercial General, to PD, Planned Development, Residential Single Family Attached. Site plans were dropped off to the city clerk's office 2 days ago. I'm here for any questions if needed.
All right, any questions for Zane?
Actually, sir, this is the one that I need to abstain for second reading because of the Methodist issue.
Right?
Because the Methodist, one of the Methodist church
this
entities
is
is
the
a client
Methodist
of my
church?
firm. And
All right, sir.
Why don't you then announce why you're abstaining before you leave if you come back, sir? Well, if you could, just for the record, all I heard was Methodist Church. But what I need to know, and
Yeah,
I'm
what I
sorry
said
to-
was that a division of the Methodist Church is a client of my firm, and it's related to this project. So.
And you previously abstained on the
Yeah,
first reading.
previously
Okay,
abstained.
thank you. I'll
Thank you.
prepare that form for you.
All right. You concluded, Zane?
Yes, I'm here for any questions if needed.
Any questions for Zane? All right, being none, the applicant, please.
Thank you, Council. Rebecca Kurt with Brooks, Shepherd, and Rocha, 400 North Tampa Street, Suite 1910.
Have you been sworn?
Yes, we have been
All
sworn.
right, thank you.
Representing Lennar Homes on this project, the plans have been certified. We had no opposition at first reading. We have support from your planning staff and from the Planning Commission, and we respectfully request your favorable consideration. Thank you. We're available for questions.
All right, any questions for Ms. Kirk? All right, being none, anyone on the second floor to speak on this item?
No speakers.
Anyone registered to speak on this item?
No one is registered.
Move to close.
So moved.
Madam Scalco, Mr. Miranda, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion granted. Mr. Miranda, could you have number 78 for us, sir?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Number 78, file number REZ 21-123. Ordinance being presented for second reading and adoption. An ordinance rezoning property in general vicinity of 4510 South Manhattan Avenue in the city of Tampa, Florida, more particularly described in section 1 from zoning district classification RS60 residential single family and CG commercial general to PD plan development residential single family attached, providing an effective date.
Second.
Second by Mr. Citro. Roll call, please.
Maniscalco? Yes. Viera? Citro?
Yes.
Miranda?
Yes.
Dingfelder? And Goods.
Yes.
Motion carried with unanimously, with Dingfelder being an absent at vote and Carlson abstaining.
All right. Item number 79.
Thanks so much, Zane Hussein, Development Coordination. Agenda item number 79, case REZ 21-128. This is being presented for second reading and adoption at the location 824 West Columbus Drive. This is rezoning from RS60 residential single family to RS50 residential single family. This being Euclidean, no site plan was required. I'm here for any questions if needed.
All right. Any questions for Zane? You know we have an applicant?
Yes, Council, good morning. Fred Henry, Domain Homes, 5703 South McDill Avenue. I need to be sworn, please.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
And I'm here for any questions you may have on this project. And as always, I appreciate your time and consideration.
Any questions for the applicant? Being none, anyone on the second floor speaking on this item?
No speakers on the second floor.
Anyone registered?
No one is
Move
registered.
to close.
So moved.
Mr. Miranda, Mr. Maniscalco, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion granted. All right, Mr. Vieira, handle number 79, sir?
Yes, sir. I move an ordinance being presented for second reading and adoption ordinance rezoning property in the general vicinity of 824 West Columbus Drive in the city of Tampa, Florida, and more particularly described in section 1 from zoning district classification RS60 residential single family to RS50 residential single family, providing an effective date.
Second.
Second by Mr. Citro. Roll call.
Maniscalco? Yes. Viera? Citro?
Yes.
Miranda?
Yes.
Dingfelder? Carlson?
Yes.
And Goods.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously, with Dingfelder being absent at vote.
Thank you. Gentlemen, we've
Thank
come
you,
to,
Council.
a little race today, I tell you. Yeah, absolutely. We can't hear the items 80 and 81 till 1:30. It's your pleasure to go ahead and take some of these staff reports now.
If we can.
Yes, please.
All right. Let's see if the chief of staff ready. Possibly. I know it's early. That's where we're at, sir. 82, if he wants to come on now. Morning, sir.
Morning, Chairman. Good morning, Council. Good morning, public. John Bennett, Chief of Staff. As the Chairman requested in the agenda approval this morning, during our agenda review yesterday, there was a request from staff to talk about the current state of COVID as it relates to city business. And of course, that includes our facilities and our employees. So I've requested a report from Chief Barbara Tripp as it relates to emergency management and the all hazard monitoring of COVID-19, as well as our Director of LAM, Adri Kalina, who is on. Not hearing from Chief Tripp this morning, probably expecting this would be a 1:30 staff report call. I'll just stand in for her at the moment because the agenda is moving along well. So when I looked at the dashboard and I looked at the CDC data, clearly we've been in a tremendous decline through the month of February on the positivity rate. I looked at the CDC of, the list of variant opportunities that may exist out there. I don't see anything on that variant list from the CDC that is threatening clearly us or what they call variants of interest and other types of variants. I'll defer to Ms. Colina about she researched with the county as well as other jurisdictions in our MSA about how they're doing business in council chambers. And then we can hear from council about their requests to potentially return council to its normal operations and also continue to support the CMT that has been identified since COVID began. So let me defer over to Ms. Colina first.
Good morning, Chief. Good morning, council members. Adri Colina, Director of Logistics and Asset Management.
As Chief Bennett mentioned, we have seen a sharp decline in COVID cases, which is very, very good. We've also seen an increase in vaccinations. Hillsborough County is currently at 69% vaccinated. The facilities team continues to routinely sanitize all city facilities. And as we all know, thankfully, we returned to just mask recommendation versus mandated on February 10th. If it is the council's pleasure, the facilities team can return you to pre-COVID type meetings within a week's notice. I have networked with both the Hillsborough County and the city of Clearwater, who have returned to pre-COVID type meetings in person. So if it is the council's pleasure, we can return, as I said, within a week's notice. So we are looking at a March 17th return, if that is the council's pleasure.
All right, I'll take questions from gentlemen. Any questions from anyone? Mr. Cost, you recognize?
No, just a statement. The public has asked us over and over again to come back in the chambers. I don't object to it.
Anyone else? Mr. Vieira, you recognize?
Why not? Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I think we're fine to come back in chambers. I think that, while everybody has to take precautions on so many different levels, I think we're reasonably fine. We have 70% roughly people in this county or in this area who have been vaccinated. And I think that it's time for us to have the public back the way that it used to be. And it's ultimately a personal choice for people in terms of what accommodations they want to have, et cetera, et cetera. And if people wish to appear via other methods, then, those accommodations can potentially be made. But I think that's the way to go.
Ms. Shelby, do we need a vote to go ahead and switch back? What is your recommendation, sir?
Councilmember Dingfelder is raising his hand.
I didn't see him. Sorry, Mr. Dingfelder. You recognize, sir?
Thank you, Mr. Shelby and Mr. Chair. Just a few questions, and maybe this was already addressed. I'm all for folks being able to come back into council chambers. I'm just have a couple of questions. Number one is, are we going to continue with the CMT allowing people who don't feel comfortable coming down in person, or for whatever reason, to be able to continue to give us their comment from either the health and or the convenience of their own home? Number one, I know that a lot of folks in the community, have expressed the idea that the CMT gives us a lot more ability to take public input without having to come downtown. The question number two is, if we open up council chambers, which, as we know, are relatively small, will there be any limitation on the number of folks in the room or spacing, spacing within the room at all? And Mr. Chairman, I don't know if you and or Mr. Bennett have had a chance to talk about any of these issues before we proceed.
We did talk about CMT. We said we would continue that. We did say the second floor is still available. So if it comes to an issue of spacing or whatever, because I know you have some conditions there, and we don't want to make sure you don't get sick coming back, we might can do something that we can work with staff on if there's a limit in here and versus downstairs. That could be a conversation. Would you agree, Mr. Bennett?
I think for folks who feel a little bit leery about, tight rooms and tight crowds, especially if you have to sit there for 2 or 3 hours for your item to come up, I think we should leave the second floor available as an option. My question, Mr. Chairman, I appreciate you worrying about my health. As you know, my surgery was on my knee. We're doing a lot better, and 2 weeks from now, I hope to actually be in person, but I appreciate your consideration. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Shelby, recognize?
Just to follow up on the second floor does have audio-visual capabilities. It has 2 monitors down there. The staff could add more chairs. Mr. Chairman, we are, sometimes mindful of overflow, crowd control in these chambers, and we've had in the past people sitting along the wall, or standing along the wall, or sitting on the sill. So
we probably won't do that. We probably will not have them standing. We'll probably, once we get with staff, see how we can coordinate it, and then whatever we have, or if we have the space, a few seats or whatever, second floor, and we do have the sisters' rooms at the bottom, so.
That'll be fine. And the kiosk, I believe, Mr. Bennett and you may have discussed that. The kiosk could be left in place if you want, but it would be not used on the second floor, which would certainly simplify things for CTTV.
All right. We'll work those mechanics out as we go along to get back in the full swing. Mr. Carlson, you recognize?
Two quick questions. So the public would like to speak here. I haven't heard anybody specifically say they want to sit out in the audience. What are we saying? We would do both. They could speak here and sit in the audience, except for overflow. And then the second thing is, what do we do? Do we all come back up to the main area
Yes, sir. We got to come back to the.
so that Lewis and Guido can't hide over
Yeah,
there?
they'll have to come back to the main frame. You know, and yeah, you have to come back to the bullpen. Yeah. All right. Let's go ahead and just take a vote that way everybody hearts and minds are satisfied that we're going to go back to the way it once was with some few still modifications that we'll deal with staff with. All right. So.
Then is to request that the administration return council chambers to its original configuration, and Ms. Colina said that the first regular date she anticipates will be March 17th. Is that correct? Yes.
All right. Motion on the floor. Get a motion on the floor to move that.
So moved.
Mr. Miranda has moved that. Second. Second by Mr. Carlson. All in favor?
Aye.
Any
Oh,
opposed?
where's Mr. Dingfelder on this?
I don't see Mr. Dingfelder on the
Is Mr.
screen.
Dingfelder on the screen? Could we take a roll call then, just because he's virtual?
All right. Well, Shelby says he wants a roll call. Roll call it is. Madam Clerk?
Miranda.
Yes.
Dingfelder.
Yes.
Carlson.
Yes.
Maniscalco.
Yes.
Vieira.
Yes.
Citro.
Oh, heck, yes.
And Goods.
Yes. He's still trying to get back in.
And Goods.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously.
All right.
It's a
Thank you.
Momentous day.
All right. We'll go to item number 42. That was pulled off the consent. 42, sir. 42 was pulled by Mr. Dingfelder. He wanted them to Mr. Vieira to kind of tell us about that background for those who may not have questions about it. Morning, sir.
Good morning, sir. Good morning, Council. Dennis Rajero, Chief Financial Officer. Item number 42 before you accomplishes two primary goals. The first goal, it expedites the spending of nearly $2.5 million of existing ARPA funding. That's the American Rescue Plan Act. And you'll recall there are timeframes associated with those spending, that funding. And the overwhelming majority of that $2.5 million of existing ARPA funding is for housing-related initiatives that you see on the agenda item. The second goal, it provides $2.5 million in additional funding for more housing-related programs. It also provides $1 million for Tampa General Hospital's JEDI program and an additional $500,000 for fire station remodeling. I can speak in more detail about any of these items, and I believe TGH Representative Stephen Harris is also attending the meeting and can speak on the JEDI project.
Let's hear about that, just so the community can know what that is. This is money coming from us. I know that you did speak to me in detail about that yesterday at my agenda review meeting with you in reference to Tampa General. So if he is on, we'll hear him so the public can be aware of what that's about. Don't see him. All right, we don't see him. Mr. Hill, since he's not, can you talk just a little bit about it? Since you kind of, or see Ms. Travis is there, maybe she can explain a little bit.
I can lead off if Ms.
fine,
Travis
sir.
wants to jump on, and she and I discussed this earlier. That's the Global Emerging Diseases Institute, and it's a TGH project in combination with the USF Morsani School of Health. It's for not only COVID, but other disease-related research and treatment. It is anticipated to be a $30 million project. They've requested $10 million from the state. They have received assurances from Hillsborough County for $5 million. And of course, you have the $1 million request from us. They are also contributing themselves, that is TGH, $10 million to the program. It's going to consist of 28 inpatient infectious disease beds that will also allow them to scale based on the extent of a virus, a pandemic, up to 91 beds for what they identify as surge capacity. That is the extent of the information that I have. Perhaps Ms. Travis has additional information.
Ms. Travis?
Good morning again, Council. Just here to answer any questions that you may have about our financial assistance regarding the rental and move-in assistance program and the other housing, affordable housing initiatives that we have on the agenda. The RMAP program that we discussed last week, Thursday, when you had your rent stabilization conversation, that program was launched on March 1st, and you see that $1 million is there to fund that program. So if you have any questions about any of the detailed items that are in the memo, I'm here to answer them for you. Thank you for your support.
I do have one. I did get a couple of calls. Is the website up and running in reference to the new program as March 1?
Yes, sir. The website is up. There's a link on our website, and we'll make sure that we go ahead and push that some more. If there's questions about it, you could direct those questions to our office, and I'll be able to help with that. And we're going to do a stronger push starting on Monday with all our media outlets and stuff.
Thank you so
regarding
much
the program.
Thank you for your work. Anyone else?
Thank you.
All right, so item number 42, Mr. Moran, that's under your
Move
purview.
item 42.
Mr. Adam has moved item number
Second.
42, second by Mr. Citro. Roll call.
Miranda,
Yes.
Dingfelder,
Yes.
Carlson, yes.
Maniscalco,
Yes.
Vieira,
Yes.
Citro,
Yes.
and Goods.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously.
Mr. Good.
You're recognized, sir.
Thank you, Council.
You all tell me if I remember this incorrectly, but I believe maybe Councilmember Dingfelder made a motion to ask the administration to spend a large portion of this money on affordable housing, and I think City Council voted. Do I remember that correctly?
Correct. I think they've broken that up a little bit. Ms. Travis, are you still there? 'Cause
But just there was no mention just now that City Council had any part in it. I just want to make sure that the public knows that City Council, I did not know.
Mr. Rahiro's still there, so I think, because I asked about that a while ago, the breakdown of the budget as it relates to housing. I know myself and Mr. Lee were pushed to make sure there was ample enough money in there for housing. So I guess, Mr. Carlson, is what is that breakdown actually, and where is that actually going to make sure we have to deal with some of the crises that are going on, if you can explain that.
Are we, if I can ask a clarification question, are we talking about this particular item or the city budget as a whole?
City budget with the ARPA, city budget with the housing that council approved. That's what Mr. Carlson's asking.
I think there was do I remember correctly? There was a motion where I thought that Councilmember Dingfelder made the motion, but to ask the administration to spend a large portion of the ARPA money on affordable housing.
That was correct. Mr. Rahiro, I think he can answer that question.
I just want to make sure.
I don't have it in front of me, but I can speak generally. From the American Rescue Plan Act funding, we have allocated $16 million for homeless and housing related expenses. I can provide more detail after I research it.
And my only comment is to remind the public comes before us every week asking for us to push for money for affordable housing. In this case, my colleagues did push for it, and the administration listened and put it in the budget, so thank you.
All right, Mr. Dingfelder, you recognize?
Yes, Mr. Carlson is 100% correct. It's a team effort. I know the mayor is committed to affordable housing as is city council, and it's one of the reasons I wanted item 42 to be discussed, to show the community that we are using federal money as well as our own local money to try and address some of these emergency issues. The other thing, Mr. Carlson, and this issue is still outstanding, and Dennis and I talked about it earlier in the week, is the second tranche, as they say, of ARPA money has not yet come into the city. And as related to the second tranche, I think it was about $5 million that was being proposed for solid waste. And as much as we like the solid waste department, it was that money that I also suggested that we use all or part of it when it comes in for affordable housing. Because I don't think we have a solid waste crisis, but we have affordable housing crisis. But Mr. O'Hare and I agreed that we would continue to have that discussion later into the spring because that money hasn't arrived yet. So it's sort of a little bit premature to get into that debate.
All right, well, I would say, Mr. O'Hara and Ms. Travis, if you go ahead and, what we have now has been allocated out of the budget to you, so council members can know where those dollars are going for homeless and for housing. That way we know how much dollars is going where. That way council members can tell their constituents where that money is, since we have a housing situation. So I think that would be good information so we can have that to the public.
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving along, item number 83.
Thank you, Council.
That was taken care of.
That was taken care of, yes. 84 was taken care of too, right?
No.
No, we had a vote, it's a resolution, we voted on 84. We have Mr. Washington for 84.
No, he wasn't. No staff on night number 84.
No staff for 84?
Move the resolution.
All right, we'll move it then.
Second.
All right, Mr. Maniscalco moved, second by Mr. Miranda. Roll call.
Dingfelder,
Yes.
Miranda,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
Maniscalco,
Yes.
Viera,
Yes.
Citro,
Yes.
and Goode.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously.
All right, we accepted the report for 85, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. 86. All right. 86 was my item. Several phone calls about this item, so I know some people may be upset because most of them
we
probably
go.
thought it would be at 1:30, but
No, I see people online.
I'm talking about the public.
Oh, the public. I get you, I'm sorry.
Yeah, folks, we're gonna hold 86 off because I know there were a lot of people from the public want interest about 86, so we're gonna come back and hold that at 1:30. Thank you. All right, we'll move on to 87, which was taken care of for June 3rd, correct?
Yes, sir, thank you.
Right? 88, Mr. Dingfelder. You can get with that report, correct? No, we want to talk about that because of the study. Is Ms. Travis still there? Item 88.
I am here. Good
All
morning.
right, she's pretty busy this morning.
All good. Good morning again, Council. Nicole Travis, Administrator for Development and Economic Opportunity. Last week, during the workshop on rent stabilization, there was extensive conversation about what we're doing for affordability and housing choices and options that our community is facing crisis with right now. You heard a lot from our citizens, and you heard a lot from staff. And Councilman Dingfelder has been asking about a housing needs assessment. It's also identified in the mayor's advisory report on housing affordability. And last week it came up again at the rent stabilization conversation. And so I'm just here before you to just reaffirm my commitment that we are moving forward with a housing needs assessment. This assessment does take time and resources, but right now we're in the stage of preliminary pulling this information together, as well as reaching out to several organizations, including USF and the Urban Land Institute, to put together a scope for an RFP. And in that RFP, I anticipate that we'll be asking for demographic trends in our current housing needs. We'll also be looking at assumptions in our future housing needs. And we also would like to push that we look at the local trend data to see really the supply side and what's influencing those factors, so that we can prioritize as a staff and as a community how we're going to continue to move forward with our housing affordability. I ask that you allow me some time to work on this, and I could report back in 6 months just to tell you where we are, where the RFP is, and just continuously provide you update on where we are in this process. But we are moving forward based on conversations that we've had, and particularly that workshop that we had last week, Thursday.
My only concern is that we are in a situation, Ms. Travis. And I know your housing department needs people. I'm hoping with you being on board now, we can get those hires in there. Sometimes we gotta be, make sure people can be cross-trained sometimes to do certain things, because that can help us a little bit too with some of our situational needs. And I'm hoping that, we can get that moving to get more of those hires in, because if we don't have people to do the work, we can't get the work out for the citizens to be able to get what they need. So I'm hoping that works. But for me, 6 months is a long time. And again, people are hurting now. $1 million is not going to do it, and we know that. And I'm hoping that we can get a little better time frame. But I get you want to go 6 months, but I think we gotta show the people we're to try to see if we can move that number up and work to move that number up.
Oh, yeah, sure. That was just my recommendation as far as providing a report. I can provide a report in half that time, just to let you know where we are with that status, and continuously report to you where we are with that status. But that's just on the reporting side. It doesn't mean that the work stops and wait for action for 6 months. We're actively working on it, and whenever you would like me to return to provide you with an update on where we are in the process, I would be happy to do so. Just as a point, though, understand that the immediate need that we heard from the citizens and what you, Chairman Goods, are talking about, it's really the community wants immediate need right now. And the $1 million that you just approved in that last discussion of that financial project really is helping us. And it's not just that $1 million. There's more money that for people that are in a lower income bracket that is allowed to help. So that $1 million really helps up to 140% of their immediate income. So we're going to continue to do everything we can. And so whenever council feels appropriate for me to come back and provide an update, I'll be happy to do so.
I just want to say, Ms. I'm going to get to you one second thing for legal was here explaining criteria. So if you had a rent stabilization issue, I just want to make sure if we do that housing study, we're going to pay money, that needs to be incorporated in that somehow, so that we can say this is a situational need. The community is saying we have a concern or crisis, and making sure that we break that down to show where that crisis is and what our shortages are and so forth. So if we do have to come back, then this council has to vote on taking something for the citizens, or the citizens want to put something forward. We have some documents to say that the city of Tampa has done something, and this is where we are with facts and figures. All right?
Yes, sir. Got it.
All right. Ms. Dingfellow, you're recognized.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Ms. Travis. Ms. Travis, I appreciate the conversation. I guess the question I had are twofold. Number one is, what is the total timeline that you would expect for a housing study to be? Obviously, you got to put together a scope, you got to put it out on the street, RFP, has to be responded to, and then the work has to be done. But what is the total timeline that you're looking at? Is it 12 months? Is it 18 months? 24 months?
To have the study complete as well?
Yeah, to have the whole thing done, total timeline. And I know I can't pin you down and hold you to it. I'm just looking for a ballpark.
Sure. I anticipate that the study itself will take about 18 months, and that's just based on my experience with having done other housing needs assessments in other communities. And so that's about the time. And usually that housing needs assessment is broken into 3 phases, and you'll have deliverables. It's not all at the end of the 18 months. You'll have deliverables for maybe phase 1 and phase 2 early on, and we could bring that information back to you just based on what we have. The other part to that, I anticipate that it would take us at least 60 days to develop an RFP and to put that out, and we'd have to allow for at least a 30 to 60 day response time. So I can anticipate anywhere between 3 to 4 months to get the RFP out on the streets, get responses, make the selection, and make the award within 3 to 4 months. But again, Council, I just want to say that we're not going to stop. We're in between that time. we have some text amendments that we would bring back to you in a workshop along the way. And just, this is a multi-pronged approach, and we just need to continue working on it from every facet. So the housing needs assessment doesn't mean that we stop our pursuit to housing affordability and housing supply.
I understand. I just think it's fair that everybody here's what the total timeline is, which sounds to me like we're talking about approximately 24 months total to be from where we are today to the end. Do you need a motion to move forward now? Or is that already, was that already done last week? Or, you know, what would the best course? That's question number one. And then question number two is, the housing study itself, is that going to also include market rate housing as well? Because a lot of times, you know, there's a lot of discussion about when we're doing rezonings and that sort of thing, and people say, oh, you know, people are moving here, we've got to approve this, Some people are a little bit skeptical about some of that. So would a housing study include market rate housing as well as the different levels of affordable housing and workforce housing?
Yes, sir. The housing assessment study, what it does, it looks at all housing choices and housing options for every pocket. So not just affordability from the affordability aspect, but also single family homes, larger homes, and just to make sure that we have a variety of housing options and what we have and where we should aspire to be based on our community projection population growth.
And rental as well as owned, right?
That's correct, sir.
Okay.
And then to answer your question about the motion, a motion was not made for us to move forward with the study last week. And as I shared with council last week, Thursday, I don't need the motion to do the right thing. We're moving forward. And even if you didn't make the motion, I'm coming back to you to report on it. So however you see fit, Councilman Dingfelder, we're working on it and it's a priority.
Okay, so why don't, Mr. Chairman, if we could entertain this, I think as part of last week's presentation, Ms. Feely and you were coming back in June for additional presentations on all of these housing issues. Is that correct, Mr. Travis?
I can't remember if it was June. Yeah, we told you we were going to come back. I can't remember if it was June or August, but yes.
I think it's the June workshop.
Okay.
She promised
I think
me
it
that,
is June.
Mr. She did promise me that. She did promise me that I didn't need to make a motion last week. I was going to make a motion last week, but she said she's committed to her word. That's why I didn't make the motion last week.
No, I know, Mr. Chairman, but just so the clerk has it on file and the public has noticed,
Okay.
why don't we go ahead and make a motion to include this item, just an update on this item at the June workshop, and then that way, you know, the public can get, you know, stay informed on it as well.
All right, well, Mr. Shelby,
That would be
you
my
recognize?
motion.
Just when you say this item, it says to provide a report on the thoughts on a housing needs study. Would you like to clarify that for the purposes of coming
Well,
back on the
just,
workshop?
it would just be an update on the progress of the housing needs study.
All right. Motion made by Mr. Dingfelder, second by Mr. Maniscalco. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion granted. All right. Anything else, sir?
Thank you, Mr. Travis.
Thank you, Ms. Travis.
Just to announce.
Thank you, sir.
the
We'll
date-
see you on June 23rd.
Just to announce the date, it will be June 23rd workshop.
All right. Mr. Shelby, I've received, I guess everyone received a stack of forms here from Mr. Joe Robinson. We'll make sure we enter it to the record for the
Well,
clerk.
actually, the clerk has been
Clerk
provided
has
with a copy.
Okay, in the record, all right. All right. Item 89 and 90 have been dealt with this morning, earlier. Item number 91, Mr. Shelby.
Mr. Chairman, members of council, Martin Shelby, City Council Attorney. I'll be brief. I've asked the clerk to set the timer for 5 minutes so I don't go
You're
long.
fine, sir. She don't need the timer. You're fine.
That's okay. Just to talk about a discussion by council of hiring a facilitator for the charter workshop, which is now scheduled for March 24th of 2022. And as you know, council has been talking about this workshop for a long time. And if you've heard the chair talk about this, it is primarily a workshop for council to discuss the issues relative to council's experience of the charter. And as we know, as I stand here, I'm looking at 3 members of the Charter Review Commission, Council Members Carlson, Council Members Citro, and Chair Goods. And upstairs on the 8th floor, we have, in the legal department, we have 2 members of the Charter Review Commission. We have Deputy City Attorney Andrea Zellman and Deputy City Attorney Morris Massey. And what I want to say then, Council, is this. In talking with the chair, and certainly I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I take my direction from the chair, and the chair has made it very clear that this workshop primarily is for the benefit of City Council. You are all now in the sunshine. You can't talk to each other outside of the meeting about anything that could come up, certainly not a potential charter change. So your workshop is the opportunity for each of you to be able to communicate to each other and to the public your positions as to the needs, if any, relative to changing the charter. Now, you know the charter was recently amended and it took effect when you were elected. So that being the case, Mr. Chairman, did you want to address that before I move on?
I'll address it, sir. Gentlemen, throughout our tenure here so far, we've had what I call interpretations at times in conflict with our city attorney and the city council attorney and the city attorney's office. Some of us sat on the Charter Review Commission in times that what we interpreted during our tenure on that review commission seems to be different to where sometimes our legal department is interpreting it. And sometimes I scratch my head because I sat on there and some of the things that I looked at and reviewed, it just puzzled me sometimes. And I think now sitting in council, I see why the last council needed a charter review, but it still needs to be crafted a little bit because a lot of things are left at a dead end when it comes to interpretation, or it comes in, well, we don't know what to do, but this is the interpretation. As you know, we've been going through these struggles throughout going on 3 years. That's why I made sure that we said we needed to, for council members to be able to discuss some of the things that have come up, to express their opinions, and maybe what I call balancing the charter to where we have a balance of power, because sometimes it seems the scale is unbalanced at times when it comes to interpretations or what relates to this council's authority and power as it relates to the administration. The administration has a job to do. We respect that, but this council has a job to do. And we want to make sure that the playing field, what I call, is level to make decisions for the public and for the city. So for me, being able to put some of the things that I've seen and to be able to discuss with this council, to have a workshop amongst ourselves, and then we'll go how we need to move forward, if we need to move forward. But I think we have to have the discussion on some of the issues that have come up during the past 3 years. So that's why I say the workshop is mainly for this council to discuss some of the issues. Mr. Miranda?
Thank you, Chairman. I was here on the other side as one of the council members along with Mr. Vieira and Mr. Maniscalco. And the charter review at that time was a two-way street between the elected officials of the Tampa City Council and the mayor. And it worked out. It was about 34, 35, maybe 36 months ago. I'm not going to hold myself to an exact day or time or of history. However, what I see coming in the speeches that I've heard here lately is I'm not going to have a Cleveland in the city of Tampa. And Cleveland's got 17 council members, salary of $88,000, two aides, one in the building and one in the districts. And I am a proponent and always will be a proponent of a strong mayor system. And I'll tell you why. It pinpoint responsibility. Bingo. Whoever he or she is for that period of time is the one that sets the tone. The council members either approve or reject those items and facilitate the needs of the public. We get a lot of complaints and different things throughout the years. I've worked with 5 different mayors, and you know what? They were all different. Every one of them was different. I worked with many council members, and most of them were different, and that's the good thing about America. If you have everything doing, all of us doing the same thing, to me, it's violation of what I consider our greatest freedom, and that's democracy. I'm not saying that's what's happening here, don't get me wrong, but I'm saying that when you pinpoint responsibility to a person, that person takes the rim the opportunity to lead the charge forward, to make the city a better city than it was when he or she took office. And I've been through 5 of them, and all 5 were different. All 5 had different styles, all 5 had different abilities, but all 5 had the same quality of making the city of Tampa a better place to live. And the culmination of what's happening in Tampa today doesn't start with this council or this mayor, doesn't start with the 5 mayors that I work with, the council members. It started many years ago, one little brick at a time, one little idea at a time. Certainly, if you see Tampa from 1970 to now, you wouldn't recognize it if you came into the city. You wouldn't think that what's happening in the city of Tampa, the amount of individuals who are wanting to move down for whatever reason. And I think the reason is they're tired of high taxes in the north. They're tired of snow drifts. They're tired of different things. And to them, spending $1 million or $5 million on a house, it's not that they think it's too low or too high. It's where they come from. That costs $10 million, not 5. So when they come here, they pay $5 million for something that we think is worth $1 million. And they say, look, we got a fantastic bargain in Tampa. And that spreads just like the wildfires that are going on throughout this country. That's due to another cause that we're not going to debate today, the global warming. But I'm a proponent, always have been, always will be, no matter where I'm at, of a strong mayor system. So if we're thinking about in any way to balance the power, count me out. Thank you very much.
I don't think it's balancing power. I think it's to look at some of the interpretations of balancing power. As
I
far
understand
as
that.
not strong form of mayor government. That's not the issue.
No, I'm not saying, I
Okay.
just brought it
All
out
right.
just in case.
Okay. Anyone else? Mr. Goss, you recognize.
Yeah, I think some people in the public, and particularly the last mayor, looked at strong mayor form of government as kind of a strongman form of government that, like a Putin or a Fernando Marcos or Noriega, something like that. In America, we have democracy, and democracy is representative government, and it is a balance of powers. And although we have a strong mayor form of government, that doesn't mean that the mayor does everything and makes every decision. We have to have some balance of powers, and the charter gives city council power. But in the way that it is conducted, we rely heavily on the legal department, we rely heavily on staff. For example, the last mayor would brag that city council's only power is that they're a zoning board. We actually have control of the budget. But if we don't exercise that power, we have no control. If we negotiate side deals, so that the last mayor would negotiate side deals so they could get the 4 votes, and the public really had no oversight over the budget. We had an issue today where we're asking a simple question: who made the decision not to put out for RFP a $100 million contract? And nothing that we've been given today says who made that decision, how. And we have a duty to the public to answer that question. And so if staff or legal department, whatever, can't give us the answers, we have to have the tools to be able to answer the questions for the public. And there are a lot of things I want to talk about when we get to that date. But what I would encourage everybody is to, you remember the pregnant pig amendment to the Florida Constitution to protect pregnant pigs by not putting them in cages. The charter is our constitution for our city, and we should put big systemic issues in there. We should not put 100 little things. We should not put a pregnant pig clause in, and we should not put things that should be ordinances or legislation. We need to put big tweaks. There's also, by the way, and I have the audio, I think maybe you all have now, of the Charter Review Commission. Those of us who are on it, I think a majority of us, don't recall some of the changes that were ultimately made. And what we don't know is several folks who are not within the city believe that something was changed either by the time it was presented to council or after, before it was put on the ballot. And we need to, again, we don't have the resources at city council to go back and do that forensic audit of what happened. Technically, we do have the chance to do a forensic audit, but how would we pay for it? And how would it get staff? And how would a firm get chosen other than to go through city staff? And so I think this administration has a much more collaborative relationship with city council than the prior administration, but when we don't agree on something, if city council does not have the power to be able to implement the powers that were already given by charter, then we'll fail to represent the public. Thank you.
Anyone else? Vieira?
Thank you very much. And I want to take ideas as they come. I mean, I have a general principle that I don't want any radical departure from what we have now in our system of government. But, you know, again, I want to keep an open mind on all ideas as they come, and I look forward to listening to everybody's ideas. You know, one of my concerns would be, and I think Councilman Miranda said something to this effect, is also the, I don't know if this term was used, or maybe I'm misquoting it, but the ballooning of any city council budget. We've had suggestions, I believe it was from the Citizens Advisory Board on certain changes that I just respectfully disagree with. And I think at times when tax dollars are very, very tight, that looking at ideas that if in an implementation would require, again, reasonableness in terms of additional staff is something that I can certainly be open to. But in terms of ballooning city council's personnel budget, for example, that's something that upon first impression, I would not be supportive of. But again, you know, I have an open mind, I think. And I will try to be reasonable and fair on everything, because obviously from all the statements here, a lot of people are putting a lot of thought into it, and I promise to, you know, be reasonable and fair in response to all of the suggestions that come up. But again, I would frown upon first impression, anything that would have any radical departure from where we're at now, or that would, in my mind, balloon our personnel budget. But that being said, open to just about everything in terms of discussion and whatnot. Thank you.
Mr. Vieira, I respect what you're saying, but I have to disagree with a few points. The city has grown leaps and bounds. My office is overworked. Even I have a new aide. She's getting burnt out because of the magnitude. When you look at county government over there, they have personnel. Mr. Shelby doesn't have any personnel to do anything. Anything. Some of these aides are working, have to be out in the areas and things like that. So I understand what you're saying about personnel, but that might be something we need to look at to increase a few people in this office because they're overworked. There's a lot of things going on, and I'm not saying we're looking to have an overbust of people, but we have to look at, Mr. Shelby can't be our attorney and trying to do clerk's work as well. That's not right, not fair to him. He can't do his job because he's doing other jobs, and that's not right. I've seen this guy trying to do public record requests. He's trying to do all other kind of things. That's not really his job. His job is to be our attorney. He don't have no research staff. He's depending on what the top tells him. So I hear what you're saying, but that's something we have to look at, because I'm going to ask for somebody else to be in District 5 because my people are overworked, and everyone knows it. Mr. Maniscalco, you're recognized.
Thank you very much. You know, on a different topic from what we just talked about, I knew what I signed up for. I knew what the job was going to be. I knew what the salary was going to be, the responsibilities. They say it's a part-time job. It's not. It's a full-time commitment. Everybody works in a different capacity, but it is a strong mayor form of government, you know, and I respect that, you know, and that's how it's been. Have I felt like I've not gotten anything accomplished in 7 years? Absolutely not. I think I have. Regardless of who the mayor is and whatnot, things have gotten done. I've had many successes, I would say. But at the end of the day, it is a strong mayor form of government. We are the city council. We have the power in approving that budget or not approving it, or making modifications, or starting that conversation early to see what we can have included or not have included. But to radically change that or depart from that, you know, of course, we'll have this discussion and we'll have this workshop, but I knew what I was getting myself into. I wasn't coming here to completely revolutionize everything. So, again, I'm open to conversation and whatnot, but, you know, one step at a time, we'll take it from there. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't think the conversation is to change the form of government. I think the conversation is look at some of the charter points that we've had issues with to either make sure the verbiage is clear. So I don't think that it's a discussion about changing the form of government. Let's get that clear. I think the conversation is some of the issues that have arisen from the charter that are not clear. And we have to define that for ourselves and the public. So I think that's the meaningful thing of having the workshop. Someone else had a question?
Just one other thing, I'm sorry to.
Go ahead, sir.
All things said and done, I've heard council's request to hire the young lady or whoever it is that you want to hire to do the process regarding the charter review. But have we ever asked the administration what, they're not gonna be in this game, just gonna be us?
No, yeah, this workshop is merely for council to be able to discuss some of the issues. Now, we're not saying that changes will be made, we're just saying these are some of the issues or concerns that some of the councilmen
So
have.
then the administration's got whatever, none, they're not gonna be in part of this conversation with the facilitator at all?
I mean, it wasn't a part of the conversation with the last facilitator. I said on that, and it was merely, but that was a slightly different process. That process last time was basically the council enacted to have a charter review commission. The mayor got people, mayor had a group of people, and it's a little bit different than what this is. This is just merely a workshop among council people. That's
So
not
then
a,
We're having a facilitator, and do we know what objects we're looking at, or the charter's not very long, is it? It's about a 4 or 5, 10-page thing, I think, at most.
I think, obviously, we would have to go back to administration
Right.
with the ideas, because there is a strong mayor form of government, but the idea here was that we could discuss among ourselves whether we want to do anything at all, and if we do, what is it that we propose, and then we'd have to figure out what the next steps are.
But then the administration is not at all involved.
They would be involved at that point, because they have to be. We can't, because we don't have our own staff to put something on the ballot. We would have to start the conversation with them. The idea here is just to hear from the public and ourselves what we think. It really should be the same thing on the budget, and to give him credit, Chief Bennett had meetings with us last year to go through what we thought about the budget, but the budget is our biggest power in the charter. The budget technically should start with city council and then get feedback from the administration. And that's the way the charter is written already. By habit, it's done the other way, but in this case, we just like we do with other issues, we come up with ideas, and then we run them through the administration after that. But including every department head, then we'd have to define a week to go through that process.
she'll be recognized.
Council, thank you for this conversation. It was very instructive to me, by the way, and also the public gets to hear the views of the city council. What occurs to me, and it's indicative of the challenge that I faced based on, direction from the chair and setting this workshop, is how to structure it. And Chief of Staff John Bennett did reach out to me to inquire as what the role is of the administration in this workshop. And again, excuse me, pardon me. In discussion with the chair, we've had this discussion just as he's communicated it to you. Excuse me. So that's been my challenge. And in trying to take on that challenge, what I discussed with the chair was perhaps the concept of bringing on a facilitator. And just to give you an instance of what we experienced, what we had was we had a statement, and then what we did was a round robin. And the question is that the way you want to conduct the workshop? Because I don't believe council will get value out of that, and I don't know what the end product is. I will tell you that in listening to all of you, there is no consensus, quite frankly, and in hearing from council members who've come to me, there's quite a divergence of what the anticipation is for this workshop and what value can be gotten out of it. And frankly, council, just to remind you that the deadline for final approval of texts for placement on the ballots, if you want it for the November 8th general election, it would be August 23rd of this year. And if you want the city election, which is coming up on a year from now, nearly, then that's January 20th of 2023. And council, I believe, is correct that clearly the legal department must get involved in this, and the legal department has to get involved in this.
That's correct.
And certainly, the legal department was instrumental working with Sal Torito, as you know. He did the drafts. He brought it to the Charter Review Commission. The Charter Review Commission approved it. It was sent to City Council in ordinance form, and again, Mr. Torito did that. The legal department did the interface, working with the supervisor of elections, ensuring that the ballot language and all the I's were dotted and the T's were crossed. So the legal department is the legal representative of the city attorney is, and ultimately they are integral to the process. My understanding in talking with the chair is that this was council's opportunity for council to take, it's only a 3-hour workshop ideally from 9 to noon, and that would include the opportunity for public comment, for the public to talk. So the question is, what can you accomplish in that time? This might very well be either first steps or no steps at all, depending on what the discussion is. But from my perspective in talking with the chair, the concept was that maybe a facilitator would be the best way to go given the circumstances. So what I did was I reached out to several people, and I actually worked through the Florida Institute of Government and Angela Christ, and she provided that proposal for City Council. You see, I also gave you the professional profile of the person. I did get to have a Zoom meeting with Angela Christ and Ann Schroeder, the person who she recommended, and we talked about the issues from my perspective. But council, here's my point. My point is that with a professional facilitator, nobody drives the train but the professional facilitator, in the sense that it may be structured differently, and she will prepare in advance for this. Certainly, if she is selected, she would get the opportunity to watch this tape, so she'll know who you are and what the issues are, and then plan accordingly. And that being said, I'm looking for direction of City Council on this, and I'm open to discussion. I certainly don't want to be perceived as driving this train. I certainly don't want to, I am a neutral in this council. I don't want anybody to think that I have a perspective that I am pushing on council. I do hear from all of you relative to certain things all the time, and that's okay and that's fine. But the truth of the matter is, it's the people's charter and it's the city's constitution, and council wanted a workshop to be able to discuss it in a way that is valuable, in a way that produces something at the end that you can all either move forward or not, depending on what you want. Yes, sir.
You recognize, sir?
Out of curiosity, how much does this cost us to have a facilitator? I mean, it's going to be that day or several hours?
Yes, it'll be that day, and this is what I was quoted, and it may be subject to negotiation, I don't know, but what it was quoted as, $4,070.
For one day's work? Or
Well, actually, no,
whatever.
it's gonna be well, if you look at it, it's pre-planning, and it's also the day of, and it's also going to be producing some completion. My understanding is that there would be some sort of product produced from it, at least roadmap of where council goes from here.
And where does the money come from? The city council budget?
That's a good question.
All right.
No money, by the way, to remind council, just to go back in time, before even the discussion of the initial discussion of the Charter Review Commission took place way in advance, and the city council, in its wisdom, put money into the budget, next year's budget, for the purposes of planning for a Charter Review Commission, if it chose to do it. And that's how far in advance they planned that. So what happened is there was money in the city budget for the facilitator. As a matter of fact, I did speak with Marilyn Crotty about it.
You said what, $4,500?
What?
You said it was $4,500?
What was?
You said for this lady, it's $4,500?
No, I said $4,070.
Oh, that ain't no money. $4,000? Really? Spend that in less than 2 weeks, man. $4,000, man. Mr. Randall, you recognize?
I just want to know, how was this person chosen? Was she a group or just individual? I don't know. I don't know her.
This was done on after talking with Angela Christ, and she investigated. And this is the person she recommended. I talked with other people. They weren't available. I was asked to ask if Marilyn Crotty were available. She was not. This was done on short notice, relatively short notice relative to this date.
Isn't there any form of, we could say, through the media, social media, or whatever media, that you're looking for a facility? I'm not saying she's great or not great, because I don't know who she is.
No, I did not advertise it, sir.
There was no advertisement done?
No, sir.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Carlson?
I was not involved in that process at all, but as I recall, the former council or staff went to this same USF Institute, and this USF Institute is very highly respected and seen as a neutral arbitrator of issues and with government agencies. And when the former council engaged USF then found Marilyn Crotty, and she was a subcontractor to USF. And so it appears that Mr. Shelby's followed the same process that was done for the Charter Review Commission. However, Ms. Crotty has retired, I think, or something.
And also, by the way, even if she would come out of retirement, she's unavailable on that date.
But the process is, if you, as I understand, you can go to a government agency. In this case, we're not hiring her directly. We're going to a government agency, and the government agency is choosing this person.
And that's what we did the last time. And yes, sir.
I would recommend a facilitator, just so it's not biased in any way, and so the information can come out. If we decide not to do anything, that's fine. But you all who are on the Charter Review Commission will remember that luckily now we have I think a pretty neutral city attorney. But the last city attorney, who was not a part of that committee at all, Martin Shelby, was designated as the attorney to represent the Charter Review Commission.
No, that's not true, actually.
No?
No, I was legal advisor, and Sal Torito was also legal advisor.
So what happened? You've heard me talk about this before, but Sal
Sal
right
did
there,
most
and
of
you guys can go back and listen to audio.
Yeah.
He actually screamed at me and turned red-faced and screamed at me and said, "You're trying to change the strong mayor form of government." And I said, "That's what city council asked us to do." And he screamed at me again and said, "No, they didn't." And I said, "Look at the instruction document, like point number 3 or whatever it was." I read off the written instructions that city council had given us to try to, and one of the main instructions was to try to balance the powers. And he would not let me move forward on any motions pretty much related to that. And so whatever the Charter Review ended up with, it was partly biased because there was not a neutral party helping us, guide us through the process. And then we don't know if anything was changed after that. We still got to do an audit on that. But an example of a problem, there's many things I think some of us would like to do an investigation on, including some issues that were supposed to be discussed today. We have a right by charter to have an investigation, but who's going to pay for it? Where's the budget going to come from? Who's going to manage it from a city council point of view? There's no apparatus. And if it happens that the strong mayor administration has a difference of opinion with city council, there's no method for us to look at anything. And I'm not suggesting that we go out and implement it, but when the questions come up, even though we have powers by the charter, we actually have no power.
You have no money. That's the key. You understand?
We're in charge of the budget.
Right, but we have no money for this council to operate. We have no money. I don't care what anybody says, our money is very, very small. So even if you say you needed to do something, or we needed to hire somebody, we've got to go ask somebody else to give us some money. Versus this council doesn't have any money to really operate. And that's kind of the problem I have, the dollars and cents a little bit. If we need to do something, I got to go beg somebody else to give me some money versus we should have our own budget with budgetary money that's substantial so we can operate. And the Citizens Financial Committee even said that we are under budgeted. They even told us that we're under budgeted. And that's a problem I really do have, that we are under budgeted. I'll go Mr. Shelby, then I'll go with Mr. Vieira.
Mr. Chairman, those are all budgetary issues, and that's something that you can actually work within the budget, but then it comes to how council approaches how they handle the budget, which is something outside necessarily the way the charter is.
Correct.
The charter could perhaps be tweaked. Council, we're coming up on the noon hour. I certainly don't want to go long.
We'll take Mr. Vieira, then we're going to go bring us to a close.
Okay.
In mind, just really quick with Councilman Carlson's point, I mean, and I think Mr. Shelby pointed this out, which is maybe now with the budget coming up, we can appropriate a certain amount of dollars, $10,000 a year, just as something, and if we don't use it, it goes back into the budget. That's it. In case of things like, for example, this USF Institute, again, just have it there for issues like this. To the extent they would become relevant. They haven't become relevant since I've been on city council, so it wouldn't be foreseeable that they would be relevant, but at least to address that potentially legitimate concern, just something to consider as a very small allotment, such as the USF related facilitator. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vieira. Mr. Shelby, anything else?
Council, the workshop is 3 weeks from today. And the question is, how does council want to conduct it? I mean, the only thing different, frankly, than what we've already heard today, without specific details, would be, a presentation on the process on how you amend the charter, and some direction on how council wishes to approach the workshop. Or do we let it be sort of in the form it is? But what I'm looking for is direction, because I had it added to, council added this to the March workshop, but frankly, I do not have direction as to how council wishes to proceed, because the direction that I get is this is for the benefit of city council to discuss amongst itself. So I'm looking for direction. I've proposed this. If this is not satisfactory, if the timing of this is not correct, if the timing of this is not right, if there are, if it's the view of council that it needs to be structured differently, or it needs to be handled differently in light of what you've heard today, I certainly am open to that. I apologize for putting this to you late in the game, but I think after my discussion.
Shelby, no need to apologize, sir. It is what it is.
It is, well, yes, that's true,
There's
but.
no need to apologize.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve the hiring of USF to facilitate this.
Second, but if I may. So it would be for the 24th, and we will have it begin, we'll have public comment, we'll have no public comment that day, and we just go right.
Or you have public.
We have public comment.
Or, Mr. Chairman, that raises another question. Now that we're going to be going back into chambers, do you want to have public comment and go back with the workshops? We've had that discussion. There was some sort of comments from the public about doing it back to the old rules, which is after each subject, the public speaks after they've heard the presentations and they've heard council. And that's the way I would recommend we go forward on the 17th and beyond.
I don't have an issue with that, Mr. Shelby.
Okay.
That's not a biggie. That's not a biggie right there.
So then the public would have as generally, under your rules, the public would have the opportunity to speak.
So the specific topics on this workshop day will be this charter discussion with the facilitator, and then the draft ordinance regarding the Citizens Review Board discretion to hire, retain independent counsel.
And you still want that to move forward, Councilman Vieira?
Sure, yeah.
Well, the question.
Did I motion for that some time ago? I have no need to withdraw it, yeah.
That's not the only thing. I mean, there's some other things we asked you to write down as for discussion too, Mr. Shelby, I recall.
That's right.
All right.
I'll be presenting that. As a matter of fact, council, I'd like to, if you wish, meet with you individually.
Right.
To discuss that in advance of this workshop, so we can know where
I
we're
think
going.
that's good. So if you have any individual questions about the charter interpretation, that way Mr. Shelby can have those, so we're not taking all day. We can go straight to those particular points. I have a couple that I want to give to him that we discussed.
Now, I'm sorry.
No,
All right, Mr. Cicero?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to say a couple things. Number one, we have 3 of us that were on the Charter Review Commission, along with 2 attorneys upstairs. We were appointed by city council members, whether it be biased or not biased, for have public input to how they wanted their city to be run. During that discussion, we had equal say, not only from city attorney, but from an attorney for the executive branch of this government. So in my opinion, there was fair play of batting back and forth the issues. Also, from the last Charter Review Commission, we also put in place for the next Charter Review Commission to be brought up. And I believe that's in 6 years?
Yeah, give or take, 6 or 6 years.
So we're midway through, and now we kind of want to change horses in the middle of the stream. Granted, we can always take a look at the charter. However, if we are going to place anything on the ballot, I would like city attorney to be here also.
I don't think we placed anything on the ballot on the workshop. I don't think we placed anything on the ballot.
We've already decided, we've already said if there's gonna be ordinance change or anything, if there's gonna be a change to our charter, don't we have to put that on the ballot?
Right, but I don't think we're trying to put anything on the ballot on.
This is just, then I want to hear from the chairman that this is strictly discussion.
It's discussion. Am I right, Mr.? It's a workshop.
Am I
discussion.
gathering, did all the
Just a
other
discussion.
council people, it's just
Discussion.
discussion?
Discussion.
I was still like,
We can't move forward to putting on the ballot unless we have the city attorney there so to understand what we want put on the ballot or she
then
gives her
in that case,
recommendation.
instead of revisiting, I would like to have a city attorney here
All right.
during our discussion.
That's what you want me to try. I mean,
Thank you.
I don't
Say
care.
what was
Thank
it?
you, Mr. Chair.
What was it again? During
The city attorney.
Oh, you mean at the workshop?
At the workshop,
I
yes,
don't
sir.
care. That ain't a big deal.
Thank you. Thank you,
So-
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, some of the matters that I'm going to propose have to do with the structure of the city attorney's office. So at that point, I would ask for us to go into executive session or whatever for the city attorney.
I don't think you could do that.
I mean, the city attorney ultimately is going to have, but if we end up with a problem like we had with the last city attorney, the city is not going to be able to move forward. We already have a situation where 4 or 5 of us are spending tens of thousands of dollars defending ourselves because the city attorney office has decided not to protect us and not to protect this institution. And this institution is being bombarded from all sides without any protection. And if the city attorney's office was structured in a different way, that would not happen. There is an inherent conflict of interest in the way the city attorney's office is set up, and we need to tweak that so that we don't put future city council members at risk, and we don't put the public at risk of not being represented by fear being instilled in city council members.
I mean, I'm a fair guy. If Mr. Churchill wants to see, I have no problem with the city attorney office being here. I don't have no issue with that. It's
a public meeting,
It's a public
by the
place.
way.
So it's mainly to discuss some of the issues that have come up through these 3 years that comes into play of interpretation and things like that. And I have a couple of recommendations when it comes to that. And I've got another recommendation about something else that's going on. So we all have, it's a discussion. And each councilman can add on to that and say this is that, and we move on. But we need to move on. There's a motion on the floor. Mr. Citro's asked for the city attorney to be here, which is public. That's no problem. So now we've got Mr. Carlson has made the motion. Maniscalco has seconded. In reference to our money, I guess we'll ask them to give us the money or give us the money for the for the facilitator. We reallocate money all the time in this city, so it's no different now.
Is that part of your motion or no?
Oh, we got to get the money.
You have to, you'll have to work with if you don't have the money in your budget, you certainly would have to do a budget amendment of some
I mean, I don't know how much money we have in our budget, how much the city council take, because I think it's so small,
I think people get reverse
Yeah. You know what I'm saying? That's my point. We haven't even asked a motion. We had money in our budget doing, I don't know what we have. Okay.
You still don't
All right,
sorry.
Right, so there's a motion on the floor for Mr. Carlson, second Mr. Maniscalco. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion granted. Mr. Shelley, let's go.
What was that again?
Just for clarification, is the hiring for Ann Schroeder or just?
No, it's
To hire
it's the
USF.
hiring, it's the hiring through the Florida Institute of, it's the hiring through a facilitator through the Florida Institute of Government.
Yeah, to hire.
At the USF.
To hire the USF, Florida Institute of Government,
Yes.
who will then provide a facilitator.
Did you get that? And what was the vote again, Madam Clerk?
Unanimous.
Yes, sir, Mr. Maniscalco.
And in order to pay for this, do we do a reverse mortgage on the City Hall building? I'm kidding.
And if I may,
Yes, Mr. Vieira.
thank you, sir. And I appreciate everybody's contributions. A lot of people are speaking, and they've obviously been doing a lot of work. And again, I promise, as I know every city council member does, just to be open-minded and reasonable on all suggestions, because obviously people are putting a lot of thought and passion into this, and I fully respect that. Thank you.
This is not an attack on the administration or anything. It's just a matter of some of the things that have come up are interpretations, and they're unclear to everyone. And we just need to clear up a few things to make them clear, so the public is clear, we're clear, and we run a smooth ship. That's all this is about. It's not overthrowing the government,
And Mr. Chairman, if I can, in the spirit of working together with the city attorney, certainly, if there are those kind of words in the charter, for instance, when she did her memo in September, I believe, of 19, and she made her interpretations based on the language of the charter, if that is a question, then the question would be, what do you want the result to be? And ask the city attorney what perhaps recommendation she would make to change the language of the charter to reflect that. And then if that's what you want in your ordinance, you present that to the mayor, and the mayor decides whether she wants to do that or not. And then it goes from there. But what I'm saying then is it will be helpful to have the city attorney involved in this. It's my
That's
belief.
fine. No one's excluding anybody. That's fine. Fine with me. We have some smoothies too, while we're at it. You like smoothies, Miranda? No sugar now. No sugar. All right.
Move to recess to 1:30?
We got it out of the recess to 1:30?
Yes, sir.
1:30.